Chapter 285. In the VIP room on the second floor. Tagger warmly greeted Tan Xiao and Fatty Lee to take a seat. At this time, Fatty Lee's mood was particularly complicated. He didn't expect that he would invite Tan Xiao to the resort hotel to play, but Tan Xiao would actually win 1 billion yuan. 1 billion yuan. He ran such a big business, yet his net income for a year was probably not that much. Envy, jealousy, and hatred were the truest portrayal of his heart. But he also faintly felt that this matter was a bit troublesome. After all, those who could open a casino were not good people. They were not willing to hand over such a huge sum of money just like that. Tan Xiao is too young after all. He shouldn't be able to see the crux of the problem. Fatty Lee sighed inwardly and secretly decided that if the other party really wanted to renege on the debt, he wouldn't make a scene here. After all, a strong dragon couldn't suppress a local snake, and it was extremely difficult to take advantage of others in their territory. How about we talk about it? Tagger sat down opposite the two of them, lit a cigarette, and crossed his legs. What do you want to talk about? Asked Tan Xiao calmly. We're all smart people, and I don't want to beat around the bush with you, said Tagger with a smile. Our casino's business is good, and we make a lot of money every year. But 1 billion is too big, and I even suspect that you did something to the machine. So, you can't take 1 billion. You mean, you want to renege on the debt? Tan Xiao lightly said. Tagger's smile turned more brilliant, but the chilling light in his eyes was getting more intense. He looked at Tan Xiao, shook his head and smilingly said, May I know your surname, sir? Tang, said Tan Xiao. You may be young, but I think you're a smart man, Mr. Tang, said Tagger with a smile. Some money can be taken and some can't. What I want to say is that this is Kaipan, our turf. Even if we give you 1 billion yuan, I'm afraid you won't have a life to spend it. Why don't our casino give you 10 million, and we can settle this privately? What do you think? You're really ruthless, Mr. Tagger, praised Tan Xiao with a smile. Subtract 99% from me at a stroke, and dismiss me with 1%. Do you think I'm someone who is short of 10 million? Tagger stared blankly for a moment before he immediately frowned and asked, Mr. Tang, could it be that you didn't understand what I just said? Some money, others could not spend it even if they had their lives. Do you think you can leave Saipan alive with such a huge sum of money? Tan Xiao said confidently, I think I can. The smile on Tagger's face completely disappeared and was replaced by a bit of gloominess. He took a deep drag on his cigarette and narrowed his eyes at Tan Xiao. He did not believe that Tan Xiao would be able to leave Saipan alive after getting his hands on 1 billion. He couldn't even take the money and leave the city. His boss. He was a rich and powerful character. Lao Bei Resort was backed by several powerful shareholders of Saipan. Each of them had enormous power. It could be said that no one in Saipan would dare to provoke them if these several bosses joined forces. Where is he? Jasmine's voice came from outside the VIP room. In this VIP room. A deep male voice answered. As Jasmine's figure appeared at the door, a faint smile appeared on Tan Xiao's face. Fatty Lee, on the other hand, was a bit worried. He didn't know whether Tan Xiao's face was big enough for Jasmine to treat him as a VIP and let him get the money. Jasmine entered the VIP room. When her eyes fell on Tan Xiao and Fatty Lee, she looked slightly surprised. Then she immediately came before Tan Xiao and said with a smile, Mr. Tang, did you win 1 billion in the casino? Tan Xiao let out a light smile and said, You can't stop your luck when it comes. I was just a bit careless and won some money. However, your resort is very powerful. The person in charge of the casino is going to renege on the debt. Also, if I didn't hear it wrong, he's threatening me. Upon seeing Jasmine's arrival, Tagger immediately extinguished his cigarette and stood up with a respectful expression. However, when he heard Jasmine and Tan Xiao's words, he was slightly stunned with a strange expression on his face. It was because he didn't expect that Jasmine would know Tan Xiao. Jasmine slightly furrowed her brows. She turned to look at Tagger and said in a deep voice, Apologize to Mr. Tang. Tagger was very afraid of Jasmine. He knew her identity. She was one of his boss's women and also the person he trusted the most. I'm sorry, Mr. Tang. Tan Xiao let out a faint smile as he looked at Jasmine and asked, Do you think I'm qualified to get the money I won? Jasmine hesitated for a moment before she respectfully said, I can't make the decision on this matter, Mr. Tang. Can you give me some time to ask my boss? Alright. Tan Xiao made a gesture to invite her. Red Sand Bay Port. Tom Reggie wiped the beads of sweat on his forehead. After seeing that the workers had pushed the liner into the sea, he finally felt relieved. At this moment, his mobile phone rang. What's up, boss? Mr. Tang, Tan Xiao, has won 1 billion yuan in our casino. Do you have any instructions? Tom Reggie's expression slightly changed and he fell into silence. He didn't tell Tan Xiao and Mo On that the Lao Bay Resort was his property, of which he owned 51% of the shares. Therefore, Tan Xiao shouldn't have deliberately won his money in the casino. Moreover, he was very curious about Tan Xiao's true identity. He believed that Tan Xiao's identity was definitely not simple since he could make Mo On his subordinate. He knew Mo On very well, a terrifying character that was more powerful than him. When they first met, their strength was perhaps the same. But in the following years, Mo On became more and more powerful, to the extent that he had to retreat. Moreover, when he saw Tan Xiao today, he found something that made him faintly restless. Apart from Mo On, there was also a big man who looked like Mo On. His whole body exuded a dense aura that made him secretly apprehensive. He was sure that the other party was also a powerful character. 1 billion yuan. He didn't care about it. He cared about his friendship with Mo On and Tan Xiao's identity. Tom Reggie was silent for half a minute before he slowly said, Give it to him. If he wants to continue playing in the casino, then let him continue to play. Boss, how should we explain to the others? Asked Jasmine with a frown. I'll inform them that this 1 billion yuan is my own, said Tom Reggie in a deep voice. Jasmine's heart was shaken as a shocked expression burst out from her eyes. She didn't expect that her boss would make such a decision. What was Tan Xiao's identity? To be able to make her boss not hesitate to give away 1 billion yuan? I got it, boss. Jasmine replied and returned to the VIP room. The smile on her face turned thicker and her attitude turned more respectful as she said, Mr. Tang, our boss said that if you want to continue playing in the casino, then you can play to your heart's content. Also, give me your account number. I'll send someone to transfer 1 billion yuan to your account later. What? Tagger was shocked. He looked at Tan Xiao with disbelief and fear inside. He didn't expect that his big boss would be willing to hand over the money to the other party. This young man, what kind of terrifying identity and background does he have? Tan Xiao said with a smile, Let's go find Mo On later. Just transfer the money to his account. I don't feel like playing anymore, and I'm not going to stay in the casino anymore. Pass my message to Tom Reggie. He's a good guy. All right. Jasmine nodded and replied with a smile. Suddenly, her expression moved and she said softly, Mr. Tang, since you like gambling, why don't you stay and watch the big gamble later? It seems that one of them is from your country. Big gamble? Tan Xiao recalled what Fatty Oldly said before and immediately showed a bit of interest. Fatty Oldly was extremely curious about Tan Xiao's identity at the moment. He would have asked again if it wasn't in front of Jasmine and Tagger. At this moment, his eyes lit up upon hearing Jasmine's words and he quickly said, Brother Tang, this kind of big gamble scene is very rare to see. In particular, the participation of that Qingqing mountain fella is even rarer. Shall we stay and watch? Tan Xiao pondered for a while before he nodded and said, Let's watch then. Jasmine said with a smile, There's still more than half an hour before the big gamble begins. Would the two of you like to eat something first? I'll tell the kitchen to arrange it. Tan Xiao recalled that he still had to dine with Tom Reggie in the evening, so he immediately shook his head and said, Forget it. In any case, it's only half an hour. I'll accompany Fatty Oldly to play downstairs. All right. Jasmine said, I'll send someone to take you to the VIP lounge to watch the big gamble when the big gamble begins. As Jasmine and Tagger left, Fatty Oldly immediately looked at Tan Xiao with a rare solemn expression and seriously asked, Brother Tang, this old brother Fatty has confided his heart to you, yet you're still hiding something from me? Tell me, who exactly are you? Why is the big boss of this Lao Bay resort somewhat afraid of you? I told you that the boss of this Lao Bei resort is a life-and-death friend of one of my men, said Tan Xiu. Fatty Old Li shook his head and said, in today's society, there are very few people who would pay 1 billion just for a friend. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, if you can really confide in a friend, will you take out 1 billion for him? Of course. Fatty Old Li replied without hesitation. Immediately after, his expression turned blank. He then forced a wry smile and said, forget it. Since you don't want to say it, then I won't ask. In any case, when I first met you, I thought you were just a fellow countryman who came here for a vacation. Our revolutionary friendship is very pure, very pure. It's indeed very pure, Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. But I seem to remember that someone wants to compete with me in this casino. Fatty Old Li, you won't admit defeat so easily, right? Of course, with your straightforward personality, if you really decided to admit defeat, you would also say it out loud. Am I right? Chapter 286. Fatty Old Li rolled his eyes and snappily scolded, you stinking brat. You know I can't win 1 billion in this casino, yet you still deliberately set me up. I admit defeat, I admit defeat. Goddamn, I don't have such a powerful deterrent force like you. If I win 1 billion and get it, I'm afraid my body will be thrown into the sea to feed the sharks tonight. Tan Xiu didn't doubt Fatty Old Li's words. He was well aware of the character of those casino owners. Whether it was in this world or in the immortal world, those who ran casinos were not good people. It was common for them to kill people and rob their goods for money. Let's go. I'll accompany you downstairs to play. As the duo went downstairs to the hall, many people's eyes fell on Tan Xiu. Although many people envied Tan Xiu for winning 1 billion, more people were full of sympathy for him. Obviously, they also knew some unspoken rules of the casino. Tan Xiu ignored the expressions of the others and accompanied Fatty Old Li, asking with a smile, what are you going to play? I still have 990,000 chips left, so I'll play whatever you play. I'm good with anything. I can play anything, but I can't play anything well. Fatty Old Li laughed. Half an hour later, Fatty Old Li lost more than 1 million chips in his hand, while Tan Xiu also lost more than half of the 990,000 chips in his hand. He exchanged the remaining 300,000 to 400,000 chips into cash and also got a suitcase from the casino. Gentlemen, our vice president asked me to take you to the VIP lounge on the second floor. A handsome young man with a well-proportioned figure came to Tan Xiu and Fatty Old Li's side with a face full of respect. Lead the way. 2 minutes later, they came to a spacious VIP lounge on the second floor. At this time, there were already dozens of people in the VIP lounge, standing outside the railings on both sides of the hall, watching the 4 people on the gambling table inside. Behind each of the 4 people stood one person. 4 people. 2 of them were men in their 30s, an old man in his 50s, and a blonde beauty whose age couldn't be seen. Fatty Old Li gently touched Tan Xiu's arm and whispered, see that guy with a crew cut and monkey-like chin? He was Wang Rui from Mount Qingqing. He's 34 years old this year, but has a net worth of tens of billions. Tan Xiu's gaze lingered on Wang Rui for a moment before he glanced at the other 2. Finally, his gaze fell on the blonde beauty. His brows knit together slightly while a trace of vigilance appeared in his eyes. Because he acutely noticed that the woman's body was flowing with a unique aura. This aura wasn't something that only cultivators or immortal cultivators could possess, and it seemed to belong to a clansman called the White Wing clan from the immortal dimension instead. She's very powerful. I'm afraid that the current me is no match for her. Tan Xiu noticed that the beautiful girl seemed to have sensed something and looked in his direction. He immediately averted his gaze and was secretly shocked. At this moment, the game on the gambling table had already begun. Each of them had a pile of chips in front of them. The dealer in charge of issuing cards was a middle-aged foreign man. Are they playing blackjack? Tan Xiu raised his eyebrows and whispered. That's right, blackjack. Fatty Old Li nodded. I don't like Wang Rui much, but his opponent is a Japanese shorty, so I hope Wang Rui can win. At the very least, he must win glory for our country and strike a heavy blow to this Japanese shorty's arrogance. Although Tan Shio didn't have a favorable impression of this Japanese shorty, he didn't feel like paying attention to this country's gambler. The one he was most interested in was the blonde beauty. The game began. Wang Rui didn't bet much in the beginning, and it was precisely because of this that the Japanese shorty was very arrogant and mocked Wang Rui several times. Even the Western old man also chimed in. The beautiful girl, on the other hand, had a faint smile on her face. She didn't seem to care whether her cards were big or small. She and Wang Rui didn't even bet much in the beginning. Finally, after a dozen rounds, Wang Rui suddenly raised the price and even bet tens of millions of chips. Although the Japanese shorty clamored fiercely, he was also a shrewd man. He didn't raise the bet again and chose to give up. The blonde beauty also gave up. However, the Western old man pushed out tens of millions of chips with a face full of disdain and continued to bet. The result was naturally Wang Rui's win. 20 minutes later, the game progressed to the most intense stage. Wang Rui constantly whispered to the Western middle-aged man behind him and kept raising the bet. The Japanese shorty was not to be outdone, and even the Western old man also followed. On the contrary, the beautiful girl had already given up. Brother Tang, the chips on the table have already exceeded 500 million. Who do you think will win this game? Fatty Old Li gently touched Tan Shio and asked in a low voice. Tan Shio slowly said, "The Japanese shorty." Humph! A middle-aged man next to Tan Shio and Fatty Old Li heard the conversation between Tan Shio and Fatty Old Li and sneered at them. Tan Shio glanced at him before his eyes fell back on the gambling table. He had just used his spiritual sense to observe the three people's cards and found that the Japanese shorty had the biggest cards. If Wang Rui didn't have any other means, he would definitely lose this game. However, what everyone didn't expect was that Wang Rui suddenly gave up. In the end, the Western old man also lost to the Japanese shorty. "Ha! Wang Ruijuan, you've lost most of your chips. If you keep this up, you'll soon leave the casino naked." The Japanese shorty was very arrogant as he mocked and ridiculed Wang Rui. Wang Rui coldly smiled and didn't answer. The next game began. Wang Rui directly pushed all his chips and lightly said, "I still have 200 million left. If I lose again, it proves that I'm not as good as you. Let's begin." "I'm in." The Japanese shorty looked at his cards and immediately pushed out 200 million chips with a face full of smiles. The Western old man also followed. Even the beautiful girl followed with 200 million. In the end, Wang Rui won the game. Not only did he win back the 300 million he lost, but he also won another 300 million. "Baka, continue," the Japanese shorty angrily said. The next game, Wang Rui directly pushed out 400 million and lightly said, "The chips on the table are not enough for each of you. But I'm willing to use these 400 million chips to gamble with you. If you win, I'll give you 400 million chips. But if you lose, the game will be completely over unless you exchange for more chips." The beautiful girl raised her brows. When her eyes suddenly turned to Tan Shio, she found that Tan Shio was looking at her. She immediately nodded to Tan Shio and then got up and said, "I give up. You guys play." "I'm in. I'm in," the Japanese shorty and the Western old man said at the same time. As a result, Wang Rui won again and won all the chips from both of them. Just as Wang Rui was mocking the Japanese shorty with satisfaction, the beautiful girl came to Tan Shio. She didn't speak and just stared at Tan Shio without blinking under the dozens of gazes. "What's the matter, beauty?" asked Tan Shio with an indifferent smile. The beautiful girl chuckled and said, "I like young talents, especially strong ones like you. How about we play if you don't mind?" Tan Shio shook his head and said, "A small gamble is good for the mood, but a big one is bad for the body. I don't like gambling, so I can't accompany you." The beautiful girl smiled and said, "Since you don't want to gamble, how about we find a quiet place and have a drink together? I'm very curious about you, to be honest." Tan Shio was silent for a moment and then slowly said, "I'm also very curious about you. I'll have a private party later. You can go with me if you don't mind." "Okay." The beautiful girl made a gesture and said, "I'll go back and change my clothes first. Tell me where you live. I'll find you later." "Alright." Tan Shio told her the villa's number and then said to Fatty Old Li, "Let's go." Fatty Oldly looked at the beautiful girl's back as she left and asked in surprise, "Brother Tang, do you know that rich woman?" "I don't know her." Tan Xiu shook his head. A strange expression appeared on Fatty Oldly's face as he said, "You're really amazing, Brother Tang. Not only do you have heaven-defying luck, even rich women and beautiful women throw themselves into your arms. How come this Fatty Oldly doesn't have such a good thing? It's unfair. The heavens are really unfair." "You think that woman is good?" Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Do you want me to send her to your room later?" No. A gentleman doesn't take someone's love. You keep that woman to enjoy." Fatty Oldly waved his hand again and again. Then, he said in a low voice, "Actually, I'm not the only one who came to Saipan. My wife and daughter are also here. So, Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing as he nodded and said, "Bring sister-in-law and niece to my place for a drink tonight." "All right." Fatty Oldly nodded with a smile. "It's a small world. I didn't expect to meet Boss Lee here. My luck is really good." At this time, Wang Rui also noticed Fatty Oldly. After handing over the chips to the casino staff, he greeted them with a smile. Fatty Oldly rolled his eyes and humphed, "Don't spout words in front of me, kid. Shouldn't you treat me to a meal since you won so much money tonight?" "No problem. Let's go play the Seven Goddesses dance later. I guarantee you'll have a good time tonight," said Wang Rui with a smile. "Fuck off, bastard." Fatty Oldly cursed with a smile. "Look at my body, do you think I can play? Come, let me introduce you. This is the little brother I got to know during the Thai massage today. His surname is Tan Xiu." A glint flashed in Wang Rui's eyes. He didn't look down on Tan Xiu even though he didn't know his identity. He said with a smile, "Nice to meet you, Brother Tang." Fatty Oldly has a carefree character. Although his mouth usually talks nonsense, he's very reliable in handling matters. The little brother he introduced must be very good. "Brother Wang's means are also very good," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "Stealing a beam and replacing it with a pillar is superb. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I really wouldn't have thought that the military advisor beside you was just a cover. The real powerful person turned out to be you." Wang Rui's expression changed. He quickly turned his head and glanced around. He found that although many people were observing them, no one could hear Tan Xiu's words. "Brother Tang, you're also proficient in gambling?" "I'm sorry. Quiet Knight has to spend time with his wife and child on the weekend, so I can only release 2 chapters normally. But Quiet Knight will move the chapters on the weekend to Monday. Please understand and support me, brothers and sisters. I'll release 2 chapters during the day and 2 more in the early hours of the night to make up for yesterday's chapters." Chapter 287. I rarely play and have no interest in gambling. Tan Xiu shook his head. "Actually, I rarely gamble and I don't like it either." Wang Rui said with a smile. "But I like the challenge and the feeling of my heartbeat. I've played a lot of those extreme challenges, but I can't solve some personal grudges. The Japanese are very timid." "Timid?" Tan Xiu was disdainful inside. Some of the Japanese people were indeed very timid, but there was also a portion of them who had extreme personalities and were simply audacious to the extreme. Although Tan Xiu didn't like this country and its people, he was very clear about one thing. No matter how despicable a nation was, it still had its merits. It was like, this name had a strong sense of hygiene. Fatty Oldly obviously knew a lot about Wang Rui and quickly said, "Wang Rui, you brat. Don't lead Brother Tang astray. He's a good little brother. He doesn't like those extreme challenges you play, and he won't seek the feeling of his heartbeat for no reason." Wang Rui shrugged and said with a smile, "Since Fatty Oldly is so protective of Brother Tang, then forget it. I thought I'd met someone fun. It's lonely being an expert." Tan Xiu's expression moved. He looked at Wang Rui who was about to leave and said, "I can give you a suggestion if you want to find the feeling of your heartbeat." Wang Rui stared blankly as a disdainful look flashed in his eyes. But he still casually asked, "What suggestion?" "I have 2 subordinates. They are both martial arts practitioners and have experienced many battles between experts," said Tan Xiu. "Your strength is good, so why don't you let them accompany you to play? Let's make it clear first. You're the one who wants to find the feeling of your heartbeat. Don't hold a grudge against me if you get trampled. Wang Rui couldn't help laughing and said, I'll be trampled? The person who can trample me hasn't been born yet. Well, since you're fatty old Li's little brother, then I'll give you face and accompany your two subordinates to play. Tan Xiu told him his villa number and then said, let's meet outside my villa at 12 tonight. Okay. Wang Rui made a gesture and slowly walked outside. Tan Xiu keenly noticed that after Wang Rui turned around and left, there were 4 plain-looking men nearby who had steady footsteps quietly following him. The 4 of them didn't seem to want to harm him. Instead, they seemed to be quietly protecting him. Old Li's gaze retracted from the VIP lounge's door as he asked in surprise, Brother Tang, why did you raise this agreement with him? As far as I know, Wang Rui is a martial artist, and it seems that his martial arts are not bad. There was a very powerful character in the Northwest called Yang Xinyu. It was said that he had reached the martial Dao Grand Master realm and was quite powerful. But I heard that Wang Rui didn't lose to him at all. Yang Xinyu? A strange glint flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes. He knew the Northwest's Yang Xinyu. He had seen him in the Rising Dragon Martial School and Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. He had also cured his wife's strange illness. However, he secretly ridiculed in his heart. How could Yang Xinyu's martial arts be compared with Wang Rui's? This guy looked lazy and somewhat out of tune. But his footsteps were steady, and the distance he walked with each step was almost the same. Even when he walked, his posture was in a defensive posture. Such a physical performance showed that he had experienced countless extremely dangerous things. Only those with great strength could display such a state. Yang Xinyu was not Wang Rui's opponent. Perhaps, even if there were 3 to 5 Yang Xianyas, they might not necessarily be able to defeat Wang Rui. 10 minutes later, Tan Xiu and Old Li separated. Outside the casino, they met a sightseeing car and returned to the villa. When he saw Mo On sitting cross-legged on the balcony of the villa's 2nd floor, facing the sea and silently cultivating, he secretly nodded. Diligence. This was the most important attitude of an immortal cultivator. Immortal cultivation was like rowing a boat against the current. If one didn't advance, they would fall back. If Mo On could persevere and constantly improve his strength, maybe one day in the future, he could really reach the immortal realm and step into the void to ascend to the immortal world. Boss, you're back. Mo On keenly heard Tan Xiu's footsteps. After opening his eyes, he immediately stood up and respectfully greeted him. Tan Xiu waved his hand and asked, Aw hasn't come back yet? Mo On forced a smile and said, every time he goes to relax, unless he encounters danger, he won't stop for a few hours. Tan Xiu nodded and said, then let's not bother about him. It's estimated that the banquet arranged by Tom Reggie will begin soon. You can chat more when you attend the banquet. I may have something else to do and leave early. On was surprised and asked, Boss, is there something you need me to do? Do you need me to do anything? Tan Xiu shook his head and said, you're responsible for eating and drinking well during the banquet. I'll help you find a good opponent at midnight. You can have a fight at that time. I hope you can win. Enemy? Mo On asked. He's not an enemy. He's just a conceited guy, said Tan Xiu. You don't need to kill him. Just teach him a lesson and let him know that there's always someone better than you out there. I guarantee to complete the mission. Mo On's spirit shook and he replied in a deep voice. Tan Xiu smiled and said, you don't need to take the match as a mission. The opponent's strength can't be underestimated. Just take it that you've met his match and sharpen your martial arts strength. I believe that if you can beat him, you'll accumulate a lot of experience in fighting against experts. My experience is rich enough. Mo On said confidently. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, On, you do have rich combat experience. You've gone through fire and water countless times and eventually survived. But this is different. What you experienced before was a hail of bullets or easily killing enemies with weak martial strength. But I don't think you've experienced many fights between experts with similar strength, right? Mo On pondered for a moment and nodded. You're right, boss. My strength has advanced by leaps and bounds since 7 or 8 years ago, and I've rarely encountered an opponent. Therefore, my strength has been progressing very slowly in the past 7 or 8 years. But ever since old G taught me an immortal cultivation technique, the true Qi in my body has undergone a qualitative change and turned into true essence force. Therefore, I can feel that my strength has surged again. My current strength is several times stronger than before. Moreover, I've never encountered an opponent at the same level. Tan Xiu said, when experts fight, their lives are hanging by a thread. Only then can their potential be stimulated and they can progress. I don't want to see you fight with your life on the line, but I hope you can comprehend the essence of fighting between experts through the fight. I understand what you mean, boss, said Mo On. Tan Xiu patted his shoulder and turned to look at the gradually darkening sky outside. A smile outlined on the corner of his mouth, but his eyes were full of chilling intent. Only by going through the bitter hardships could one become a superior person. The path of immortal cultivation was full of thorns and bumps. If one wanted to go further and become stronger, one must fight against the heavens, the earth, and the people. In the past, in the immortal world, which outstanding powerhouse didn't step on the corpses of countless people to cast the supreme throne? His words just now were said to Mo On, but wasn't it also for him to hear? The taste of falling from the clouds to the earth was not bad, but he had to endure the pain of losing his strength. One day, he would return to the immortal world to find his enemies and step on their corpses to complete his journey to the immortal world and step into the portal of the God's world. All of you must be well and wait for me. Wash your necks and wait. You must be safe and sound before I return to the immortal world. Tan Xiu clenched his fists and blue veins bulged on his arms. That faintly discernible killing intent made Mo On's heart tremble behind him, and he subconsciously took half a step back. Suddenly, Tan Xiu turned around and looked at the cautious Mo On. He pointed to the boundless sea outside and asked in a deep voice, "Can you tell me what you see?" Mo On thought for a moment and said, "It's the sea." "What else?" Tan Xiu asked. "What else?" Mo On frowned and his eyes flashed with a look of deep contemplation. Finally, he shook his head and said, "I can't see anything except the sea and the night, boss." On, do you know why I'm so optimistic about you? Tan Xiu said lightly. But Mo On's expression moved and asked. Because you're smart. You know that wisdom is often more fearsome than force, Tan Xiu said. I once asked Gu Xiaoxue about you and she told me a lot. I don't understand what you mean, boss, said Mo On. Tan Xiu said lightly, I want to tell you that the path of cultivation is not about pursuing power, but also about improving one's state of mind. You and Awe have very strong willpower, but you haven't truly understood what a real cultivator is. I once met a lot of people who blindly pursued power and neglected the cultivation of their state of mind. As a result, they couldn't overcome their inner demons when crossing the tribulation and finally ended up dying. Mo On asked, Boss, you said crossing the tribulation? Is it like in the Xianxia novels? There's a difference, but it's not a big one. Tan Xiu nodded. How can we cultivate our state of mind at the same time, boss? Mo On asked again. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, the cultivation of the state of mind is about perception. I'll explain it to you with the simplest example. For example, I just asked you what you saw from the outside. You said you saw the sea and the sky. But do you know what I saw? What did you see? Mo On was confused. Tan Xiu said in a deep voice, I saw the vastness and vastness. I saw the vastness and fusion. I saw the meaning of the existence of the vast sea and the beauty and mystery of the night sky. Mo On himself was very smart. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's words, he instantly understood and said, Boss, do you mean to explore and seek knowledge? Thoughts and pursuits? There are 2 chapters left in the morning. Seeking recommendation votes and monthly votes _. Chapter 288. Tan Xiu was very satisfied with Mo On's perception and felt that his words just now were not in vain. Finally, he concluded, it can be described as exploration and seeking knowledge, thought and pursuit. But for cultivators, it can be summarized in a more comprehensive way, to comprehend the heaven and earth, to be inclusive of all things, to be virtuous, to carry the Tao, to transform one's state of mind. 16 words. They were like a beacon guiding the way, wandering in Mo-on's heart. A flower, a tree, a world, a heart, a thought, an emotion. The emotion stirred, the thought of the heart. Mo-on recalled all the past events and suddenly felt a palpitation in his heart. He sat cross-legged on the balcony and slowly closed his eyes. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment before a strange expression appeared on his face. He didn't expect that his words would move Mo-on's heart. Tan Xiu's senses were extremely keen. He could sense the drifting heaven and earth spiritual energy in the surroundings rushing toward Mo-on. Suddenly, a smile appeared on his face as he quietly left the balcony. Half an hour later, Mo-on returned with a radiant face, along with Tom Reggie, who had a strange expression on his face. Tan Xiu made a silent gesture to the two men as they came to the hall on the first floor. Tan Xiu then said with a smile, "It's not convenient to disturb On now. But how come you two came together?" "I just learned that Brother On is On's blood brother, Mr. Tang," said Tom Reggie with a forced smile. "This brother is really amazing, really amazing." "You mean his martial strength?" Tan Xiu was surprised. "Martial strength?" Tom Reggie shook his head. "I won't be shocked even if his martial strength is amazing. I'm talking about his masculinity with men. 3 hours. Within 3 hours, he would make the 4 women unable to climb out of the bed. I've seen a lot of men who are amazing in this aspect, but I've never seen one more amazing than him." While speaking, there was a strong envy in his tone. Tan Xiu's mouth twitched a few times and directly turned his face to the side. He didn't expect that Mo-on would be so valiant. Even if he wasn't bad in that aspect, he probably couldn't compare with Mo-on, right? He was simply a fighter among men. "Come, sit down and talk." Tan Xiu changed the topic and asked the two of them to sit down. Mo inquired, "Boss, On he?" Tan Xiu raised his hand to interrupt him and smilingly said, "He's fine, better than ever. Don't worry, he should come down after a while." Mo knew that Tan Xiu wouldn't lie to him, so he nodded and stopped asking. Looking at Tom Reggie, Tan Xiu said with a smile, "I have a few friends who want to attend the banquet. Is that okay?" "No problem," said Tom Reggie with a smile. "Your friends are my friends. I don't have many friends anyway." Tan Xiu looked at Tom Reggie, an indescribable feeling surging in his heart. Friends. He had suffered a lot because of his friends, but he envied those who had few friends. Although he seemed to have a lot of friends now, there weren't many that he could confide in. Even if there were such people, Tan Xiu would still be on guard. He wouldn't cheat his friends, but he would be cautious in making friends. As the saying goes, one must not have the heart to harm others, but one must always guard against others. He could be considered as once bitten, twice shy. For example, Fatty Lee, whom he just met today. He had a forthright character, which was Tan Xiu's favorite. But it was hard to tell what a man's heart was. Who could guarantee that Fatty Lee didn't harbor evil intentions and harm others? Tan Xiu believed that there was a saying that there was no absolute reliability in this world. Only the number of benefits could determine whether one was reliable or not. He had once seen such a post on the internet. There was a pair of twin brothers. The eldest brother was honest and sincere, and he loved the younger brother dearly. However, when he was drunk, he made a statement that he was telling the truth after drinking. "If anyone gives me 100 million to sell my younger brother, I'll stab him to death. If anyone gives me 1 billion to sell my younger brother, I'll consider it. If anyone gives me 10 billion to sell my younger brother, I'll use the money to have fun." Sometimes, betrayal was not impossible, but the price was not high enough. Just like Du Changze and Qi Qingshan in Hong Kong. Both of them were old friends who had been friends for decades. Whether it was business cooperation or personal friendship, they were well-known friends. However, after Du Changze paid the price of 3 billion, he still used the information to extort money from Qi Qingshan in order to recover the loss. Tom Reggie looked at the somewhat dazed Tan Xiu. He raised his brows and asked, "Mr. Tang, do you think there's a problem with my words?" Tan Xiu came back to his senses and shook his head with a smile. "No problem. Sometimes, having too many friends is not a good thing. The world is big and there are too many tricks. You need to be cautious when making friends." Tom Reggie clapped his hands and smilingly said, "You need to be cautious when making friends. Mr. Tang is still young, but you can see through the nature of the ways of the world." "Not bad, not bad." Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and didn't say anything again. Quickly, dozens of Lao Bei Resort's staff came with a wealth of ingredients and wine. In the evening, the big boss, Tom Reggie, invited his friends to a banquet. After receiving instructions, they brought the best wine and the best ingredients of the resort. While they were busy, Tan Xiu and Tom Reggie were chatting in the hall on the first floor. As for Mo, who had just finished having fun, he ran upstairs to sleep. Not long after, Fatty Old Li came with his wife and daughter. To Tang Xiu's surprise, he looked like he was in his 40s, yet his daughter was only a year younger than him. "Uncle Tang." Li Wenwen called out reluctantly. She was annoyed and embarrassed because her father actually forced her to call a young man who was about the same age as her uncle. She wouldn't mind calling him that if they were related by blood. But she and Tan Xiu were strangers before and had nothing to do with each other. It was too depressing for her to call him that way. Tan Xiu was well aware of the old traditions and ideas of some elders in the country. Looking at Li Wenwen's reluctant expression, Tan Xiu shook his head and smilingly said, "Don't mind the address. Let Wenwen call me Tan Xiu or Brother Tang. Fatty Old Li, we're living in a new era, so don't use those old traditions to bind the young. Let's talk about our own things." Fatty Old Li's wife, a middle-aged woman, also felt that it was inappropriate for her daughter to call a young man uncle, so she followed and said, "Yeah, young people should talk about their own things and have fun together." Fatty Old Li stared blankly for a moment before he couldn't help laughing and said, "Since Brother Tang said so, I'm afraid I'll be laughed at if I'm still stubborn. You can do whatever you want." Tan Xiu smiled and pointed to Tom Reggie, saying, "He's Tom Reggie, a friend of mine. He's also the local tyrant here." Tom Reggie smiled and shook hands with Fatty Old Li. Then, he said with a smile, "Mr. Li, I welcome your family of 3 to play in Saipan. Since Mr. Tang introduced you, then I'll inform you that you can play here as long as you want. If you need any services, just tell the staff of the resort. Your expenses here are free of charge." "Free of charge?" Fatty Old Li stared blankly. He was already surprised when the vice president of the resort, Jasmine, offered a discount. He didn't expect that this man would actually promise to give them a free bill. Could it be he's the big boss here? Fatty Old Li looked at Tan Xiu and gently blinked his eyes. "Tom Reggie is Jasmine's boss," said Tan Xiu. In a flash, Fatty Old Li understood that Tom Reggie was indeed the boss of the Lao Bei Resort. After all, the vice president of the Lao Bei Resort was Jasmine, and her boss was Tom Reggie. This identity couldn't be wrong. "Thank you. Remember to inform me when you come to our country. I'll put down everything and accompany you when the time comes," said Fatty Old Li with a smile. Tom Reggie nodded with a smile. At this time, a beautiful lady wearing a white dress and a pair of high heels that were more than 10 centimeters tall arrived. She carried a white handbag in her hand and had elegant blonde hair draped over her shoulders, exuding a strong womanly charm with every gesture and gesture. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not late, am I?" The beautiful woman's pleasant voice was transmitted to everyone's ears. Tan Xiu raised his brows with a stunned expression on his face. However, before he could speak, Tom Reggie's expression slightly changed. He strode forward a few steps and said, "Welcome, Miss Viviani. May I know if our Lao Bei Resort has satisfied you?" "Your place is pretty good," said Viviani with a nod and a smile. It was a simple sentence. Tom Reggie was all smiles as he repeatedly nodded and said, "As long as you're satisfied." Tan Xiu and Fatty Old Li exchanged glances. They could tell from Tom Reggie's words and actions that Viviani's identity was definitely not ordinary. Even a rich and powerful man like Tom Reggie had to flatter her. What was her identity? How could Tom Reggie treat her like this? "You're called Viviani?" asked Tan Xiu. "Of course," said Viviani with a faint smile. "I still don't know your name." "Tan Xiu." Tang as in Tang Dynasty, Xiu as in cultivation, said Tan Xiu. A smile outlined on the corner of Viviani's mouth as she said, "Tan Xiu. That's a good name. You're from China, aren't you?" Your country is very good. It's a mysterious and ancient Eastern country with a long history and culture. It's what I like to study the most. Where are you from? Asked Tan Xiu. Rome, answered Viviani with a smile. Tan Xiu raised his brows. He already had some speculations about Viviani's origin. The Roman Curia was also known as the Radiant Curia. The mysterious power in her body should belong to the Curia's cultivation system. However, he didn't understand this system. All roads lead to Rome. It's a holy land in the hearts of countless people. It's also a good place, said Tan Xiu calmly. Tang Xiu, how about we find a place to have a private chat? Viviani said with a smile. To be honest, I'm very interested in you. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he nodded and said, I'm also interested in beautiful women. Come with me. I'm sorry. Due to some sensitive content being blocked, I've only finished editing it now. Brothers and sisters, please forgive me for the late update. Today, the first chapter is for you, and there will be another one later. Seeing that Quiet Night has been tossed and turned for most of the night, and Ling Chen is still struggling, I'll give you some recommendation votes and monthly votes to comfort you. Thank you. Chapter 289. Tang Xiu folded his arms and stood still like a sculpture on the coastline, watching Viviani, who had taken off her shoes and ran barefoot on the beach. It was a very pleasing sight to the eyes and heart, a very wonderful feeling to watch. It was because of Viviani's exotic beauty that made her look like a fairy maiden from a foreign land he had seen in the immortal world. Mr. Tang, do you like the sea? Her white skirt fluttered as she waved her arms. She suddenly turned her head and shouted. Tan Xiu shook his head and calmly said, humans have 7 emotions and 6 desires, and the sea is temperamental and moody. I don't like things that are beyond my control. Viviani floated up and stared at Tan Xiu with her gem-like eyes. She curiously asked, do you think you can't control the sea? The current me indeed can't, answered Tan Xiu. Then what can you control now? Asked Viviani with a smile. Perhaps I can control my own fate now, answered Tan Xiu. Don't you Chinese people think that fate is predetermined by the heavens? Why do you say that you can control your own fate? As far as I know, no one in this world can really control their own fate, right? After all, the differentiation of life levels, the hierarchy between people, and the management of the country, each of them is very restrictive and oppressive. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, though what you said makes sense, it's not entirely correct. Take you, for example. You can go anywhere in this world and live anywhere if you want to. The only thing that binds you is your state of mind. Why do you say that? Asked Viviani with a surprised expression. Because you're strong enough. Tan Xiu said indifferently. The strong can stand above everything. Viviani fell into silence. Tan Xiu's words touched her. She felt that what Tan Xiu said made sense. She was born with an unusual change in her body that she couldn't tell whether it was good or bad. She only knew that her strength and spirit were stronger than ordinary people. Even her health, learning speed, and ability to survive in this world were far superior to ordinary people. Therefore, she was absorbed by the transcendental organization and nurtured. As a result, she had long become a special existence. In the entire Vatican, she was the only godlike existence. She had even been conferred the title of Saintess. Although the possibility of her becoming the next pope was minuscule, she was qualified to be on equal footing with the pope. Power. She had it. In fact, when she was 14 years old, she directly left the church and had been wandering around like a rootless duckweed. Even so, she still did not dare to say that she controlled her own fate. You are very arrogant. Viviani was silent for a long while before she looked at Tan Xiu. However, in the dark night, her eyes flashed with an indescribable splendor. Tan Xiu smiled and said, it's not that I'm arrogant, it's just that I'm strong enough. Although I can sense that the power contained in your body should be stronger than mine, if we were to fight head-on, you're no match for me. If I use all my means, I have at least 10 ways to kill you. Viviani let out a bright smile and said, why do I have to fight him head-on? It's not easy for me to find such an interesting person, so I naturally want to get along well with him. That's right, I heard you won 1 billion in the casino? That was an accident. Tan Xiao said with a smile. Maybe it's because of good luck. But you seem to have lost a lot. Viviani spread her hands and said, actually, money should be easy for us to get, right? One of my abilities is to cheat in gambling. But I hate cheating because it makes me lose my interest. Tan Xiao gave a thumbs up and praised, you're better than me. The speed at which I earn money is far slower than the speed at which I spend it. That's why I'm a poor man. Hee hee, you Chinese people like to be modest. You tell me, both of us are very powerful, so why don't we have a casual spar? I haven't met anyone more powerful than me since I was 16 years old. Even those who are very powerful in the eyes of ordinary people can't withstand a slap from me. Tan Xiao also wanted to spar with Viviani, but after hearing that she had never met an expert since she was 16 years old, the thought immediately vanished. He shook his head and said, you don't have much combat experience, so it's meaningless to spar with you. Forget it. Viviani frowned and said with dissatisfaction, do you think I can't beat you, Tan Xiao? Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment before he couldn't help laughing and said, all right, I admit that you can beat me. Is that okay? Let's go back and eat something inside. Viviani didn't speak again. Her feet moved in an instant and she appeared at Tan Xiao's side. Her white and slender hands slapped toward Tan Xiao. Her speed was very fast, even faster than Tan Xiao's full strength. Just as her palm was about to hit Tan Xiao's shoulder, Tan Xiao quickly dodged and narrowly avoided the palm. Hey! Along with a shout, Viviani's body soared into the sky. She sprinted 7 to 8 meters high in the air before she turned around and slapped her arms down. Tan Xiao frowned. He found that Viviani didn't know how to fight at all. Although her speed was very fast, she also revealed a lot of flaws. He could counterattack at any time if he wanted to. Get back! Tan Xiao's toes fiercely stomped the ground and he instantly dodged Viviani's slapping palm. His body appeared at her side and his hand moved as fast as lightning as he instantly grabbed Viviani's flexible and slender waist. His wrist moved and he instantly pulled her into his embrace. Ah! Viviani lost her balance and felt the warmth from Tan Xiao's hands. She could also feel his strong chest after being pulled into Tan Xiao's embrace. Now you know, right? You're faster and stronger than me, but you don't know how to fight at all. I can easily defeat you if I want to. Therefore, there's no meaning in our duel. If you really want to see the fighting scene, there will be a fight tonight. You can watch it with me at that time, said Tan Xiao with a faint smile. Viviani hooked her arm around Tan Xiao's neck. Her fair face blushed and the splendor in her eyes became more intense. Right after Tan Xiao finished speaking, her arm hooked around Tan Xiao's neck suddenly exerted force and her sensual red lips directly kissed Tan Xiao's mouth. Tan Xiao's eyes widened and his expression turned sluggish for a short while. He had never expected that Viviani would take the initiative to kiss him. Moreover, her speed was so fast that he couldn't dodge it. Cut it out! Tan Xiao directly put Viviani down and pushed her arms away. He was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. Viviani pursed her lips and stretched out her pink tongue to lick her red lips as though she was reminiscing the kiss just now. Then she giggled and said, it's just an ordinary kiss, just like a couple on TV. If we're a real couple, we can have a wet kiss. There are only a few men I like since I was a child, so I've never tasted a wet kiss. How about you let me have a taste? Ridiculous. Tan Xiao had never heard of such a ridiculous request. Viviani was a woman after all. Moreover, he could tell from her posture that she was definitely a woman who had yet to do anything. You haven't tasted pork, but you should have seen a pig run, right? The TV dramas are also closely related to reality. So you should be clear that only people who love each other can kiss each other. Otherwise, you're acting like a hooligan. Do you want to be a female hooligan? To make people laugh at you? Tan Xiao quickly spoke to stop her from correcting the absurdity. Viviani stared blankly for a moment before she immediately laughed and rocked back and forth. Finally, she even clutched her belly with one hand and pointed at Tan Xiao with the other. I never thought that Mr. Tang would be so funny. Do you really think I'm a child who doesn't know anything? To tell you the truth, I was just teasing you. Tan Xiao secretly heaved a sigh of relief and smilingly said, I'm relieved since you're teasing me. Anyways, let's go. Let's eat and drink some good wine inside. Viviani ran to the side and grabbed her high-heeled shoes. She carried them with her hand and followed behind Tan Xiu to the villa. However, her mouth didn't stay idle as she asked, "May I ask you a question, Mr. Tang?" "What is it? Do you have a girlfriend?" Viviani asked. "Or, are you married?" Viviani asked. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment and then said, "I don't think so. Alas, feelings are very complicated, and I can't explain it clearly in a few words." "So you're saying that you're already taken?" Viviani was surprised. "You're also without a girlfriend? How about we use practical actions to prove that you have a girlfriend? I'll eat a loss and try to be your girlfriend. After all, you're one of the few men I don't hate." "No need." Tan Xiu waved and said, "Maybe I'll have one soon." "Am I not as good as other women?" Viviani snappily said. "Why do I feel like you're repelling me?" "I'm not repelling you. I just don't want to be dragged down by feelings," said Tan Xiu. "Got it?" "Nope," Viviani said. Tan Xiu thought for a moment and then said, "Let's put it this way. Feelings between men and women are a burden, and I hate this kind of burden. So, I won't look for a girlfriend. If I want to carry on the family line in the future, I'll just casually find a woman to marry. As long as she gives birth to my children, I don't want to talk about feelings anymore." "Your way of thinking is very strange. You're really a strange person," Viviani exclaimed. "What I just said was just to tease you. It's because it's impossible for me to pester you to talk about feelings with me every time I see you. It's just that I find you more and more interesting. I'm not a toy. I don't know whether I should cry or laugh if you think I'm interesting," said Tan Xiu with a forced smile. "All right, put on your shoes quickly and let's go inside to eat." Viviani complied and then suddenly said, "Do you want to know why one of the bosses here, Tom Reggie, knows me? And why he respects me?" Chapter 290. Upon hearing Viviani's words, Tan Xiu's handsome face looked puzzled as he asked in surprise, "Why?" "Because I'm rich." Viviani proudly smiled. Tan Xiu stared blankly and immediately rolled his eyes. He was puzzled by Tom Reggie's attitude toward Viviani, but now he finally understood that Viviani was a sucker in Tom Reggie's heart. "Of course, it's not only because I'm rich, I also saved his life," Viviani said with a smile. "A few years ago when I was on vacation in Latin America, he offended some people there. I happened to help him solve the problem, so he has always been very respectful in front of me." Tan Xiu suddenly understood and forced a wry smile. "Can't you finish your words in one breath? I thought Tom Reggie regarded you as a local tycoon and wanted to get enough benefits from you." Viviani snorted and said, "There's a name in your country. Sucker. I'm not a sucker, and nobody can get a penny from me unless I want to throw money. I want to know, where did you get so much money? Tan Xiao curiously asked. Why don't you teach me your secret of making money? Viviani indifferently said, It's not a big deal to teach it to you. You can beat whoever offends you and make them pay for it. Also, those underground forces usually bully people and seek ill-gotten gains. These people's money shouldn't belong to them. What about me? I'll teach them a lesson and make them pay a big price. Tan Xiao's mouth twitched a few times and a strange expression appeared in his eyes. Viviani might be very strong, but her combat experience was very poor. It was a miracle that she could still live until now after offending so many underground forces. However, Tan Xiao also knew that using such means to make money was indeed a good way to quickly accumulate wealth. Just like those 4 families in Hong Kong who offended him, the benefits he got from them were more than 10 billion yuan. Thinking up to this point, Tan Xiao shook his head and disapproved of such a method. It was too offensive. In this day and age, one was not afraid of thieves stealing, but they were afraid of thieves remembering. Although he was powerful, if he offended too many underworld forces, countless people would want to deal with him. Even if he could kill 1 or 2 groups, could he kill 100 or even 200 groups? Furthermore, he still had friends and family. If those people targeted those he cared about for revenge, he would be in big trouble. Viviani, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't do this kind of thing in the future. Since you have money, you can invest in some businesses and use money to make money. Always offending those underworld forces, if they were to be completely enraged and retaliate against you regardless of the cost, I'm afraid that you will also fail miserably in the gutter. Besides, if they want to retaliate against your family, can you protect yourself? Can you protect your family? Asked Tang Xiao with a sincere and earnest tone. That's right. Viviani froze for a moment and stopped in her tracks. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Tan Xiao noticed her abnormality and asked in confusion, What's wrong? Viviani didn't answer Tan Xiao. Her eyes turned blank as though her soul had been sucked out, standing there like a statue. The moonlight sprinkled on her long blonde hair, giving her a cold and elegant temperament. Murderous aura? Tan Xiao's expression suddenly changed. He could feel a murderous aura coming from Viviani's body. It wasn't strong, but it was real. Finally, Viviani sobered up from her daze. Her eyes were full of chilling intent as she looked at Tan Xiao with difficulty. Her voice was extremely cold. I finally understand why my father died in a car accident 7 years ago. I finally understand why my mother was electrocuted in the bathtub when she was taking a bath at home 5 years ago. I also understand why my only younger brother was crushed to death in the house 3 years ago when his house suddenly collapsed. Also, my uncle, my father's younger brother, was cheated of his family's wealth and forced to commit suicide. Tan Xiao looked dazed and incredulously said, Are you suspecting that these are not just coincidences? Someone is retaliating against them? Viviani tightly clenched her fists. The murderous intent in her eyes turned more intense as she angrily said, It's definitely revenge. All of my family members are dead, none of them are left. Even my neighbor, the amiable Grandma Bath, was killed by a stone thrown from an overpass when she went out to buy groceries. That's about right. Tan Xiao secretly sighed inwardly. Viviani quickly put on her shoes and turned around to run away. Where are you going? Asked Tan Xiao aloud. I'm going to kill them. Viviani shouted back. I don't care who they are, I'll make them pay the most miserable price. Tan Xiao furrowed his brows. He wanted to remind Viviani not to act impulsively. Even if she wanted to find the murderer of her family members, she had to investigate it slowly. After all, it had been many years since the incident happened. However, he eventually gave up after recalling the relationship between him and Viviani. Today was the first time they met. They only talked for a while and even kissed each other playfully. It was not enough to prove that they had a close relationship. Let her be. I hope she can find the murderer of her family, and I also hope she can survive. Tan Xiao sighed inwardly as he turned around and entered the villa. Inside, Tom Reggie was holding a crystal glass, shaking the blood-red wine inside as he chatted with Oldley. Behind them, Mo-on had already woken up from his cultivation. His cultivation had obviously improved. At this time, he was holding a plate of pastries and quickly eating them. "Mr. Tang, where's Miss Viviani?" "She had something urgent to deal with, so she left," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. "Miss Viviani has left?" Tom Reggie was puzzled. "Did she go back to the resort?" "She should have gone back to the resort now," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "But she should be leaving the resort soon." Tom Reggie curiously asked, "Mr. Tang, you seem to know why Miss Viviani left? Can you tell me about it?" Tan Xiu gave it a thought and felt that it would be fine to tell Tom Reggie. After all, Viviani was Tom Reggie's savior. Given her character, wouldn't she be blinded by anger if she knew that her loved ones didn't die accidentally, but were killed by someone? If Tom Reggie could see that Viviani had saved his life and help her, it would be good for her. She went to seek revenge. She thinks that her loved ones were killed by someone. Tom Reggie stared blankly for a moment before he nodded and said, "I know that Miss Viviani is very powerful. I've seen her beating several ruthless people half to death. She should be able to easily avenge her loved ones if she goes to seek revenge." "Don't be so optimistic. Although I haven't had much contact with Viviani, it's not that bad. Although I don't have much contact with Viviani, she seems to have lost her reason due to hatred. This might be the time when she's most vulnerable to be killed." Tom Reggie's expression changed. He was perfectly aware of how fragile a person who had lost her reason was. In this era where strength and wisdom were equally important, if someone were to take advantage of her being unprepared and secretly attack her, she would probably be easily killed. Upon thinking up to there, "Mr. Tang, I originally planned to accompany you to dinner tonight, but I'm worried about Viviani," said Tom Reggie quickly. "If you don't mind, I'd like to go and have a look." "Go." Tan Xiu nodded. Tom Reggie complied and quickly ran outside. Tan Xiu looked at Mo-on, who was wolfing down his food. He walked over and asked in astonishment, "Why do you look like a reincarnated starving ghost? I've seen you eating since I came back, and you haven't finished yet?" Mo-on swallowed all the food in his mouth and then smilingly said, "I don't know why, boss. After I woke up from my cultivation, I found that my cultivation has improved a lot, and I'm also very hungry. I can't wait to eat a fat cow at that time." "How much stronger are you now compared to before?" Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing. "At least 50%, said Mo-on confidently. "I'll be twice as strong as before if I have 2 more days." "Not bad." Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction. Lao Bei Resort. Inside one of the villas, Viviani angrily smashed the things in the room and then rummaged through the cabinets to pack up her things. Although she didn't know who the culprit behind the scenes was and who killed her loved ones, she firmly believed that she could find the culprit behind the scenes and then kill them to take revenge. "I don't care who they are, I'll kill them." Viviani heavily smashed a few clothes into the open suitcase and angrily shouted, "Knock, knock." The door was knocked and Tom Reggie's voice came from outside. "Miss Viviani, it's me, Tom Reggie. I have something I want to talk to you about." Viviani's figure flashed and appeared at the door. As she opened the door, she asked with a frosty expression, "What are you doing here? What do we have to talk about?" "I just saw Mr. Tang and he told me about your matter," said Tom Reggie respectfully. "You're my savior, Miss Viviani, so I must repay your kindness. However, I think you should listen to me when it comes to finding your enemy and taking revenge." "Say it," said Viviani in a deep voice. "There's an old proverb in China that says it's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. You still don't know who your enemy is. You don't know who you're going to take revenge on. I think what you need to do now is to find the culprit by hook or by crook, investigate their background and identity, and then formulate a revenge plan." "I can't wait," Viviani angrily shouted. Tom Reggie sighed inwardly and seriously said, "Miss Viviani, Mr. Tang just told me that you've been blinded by hatred. I didn't believe it at first, because in my eyes, you've always been noble, elegant, graceful, and a goddess full of wisdom. But now, I believe Mr. Tang's words. You've really been blinded by anger and hatred and will do something irrational." Chapter 291. Viviani's expression turned sluggish and the anger on her face disappeared a lot. She really couldn't wait to avenge her loved ones. Her heart was indeed shrouded with anger and hatred. Tom Reggie found that his words seemed to be effective, so he quickly said again, "Miss Viviani, please think about it. Revenge is a must, but you must calm yourself down thoroughly before you do so. That's the most important thing. Those who dared to kill your loved ones must have an extraordinary background. I'm sure they are all ruthless and unscrupulous when it comes to dealing with such people. If you lose your mind, not only will it affect the investigation progress, but it's also possible that you'll fail miserably. When that time comes, not only will you not be able to take revenge, but you'll also lose your life." Viviani calmed down. She was still full of anger and hatred, but Tom Reggie's words were very reasonable. Only by calming herself down could she clearly recall what happened in the past. Only then could she remember who she had offended that caused her loved ones to be killed. "Just go. Leave me alone." Viviani waved her hand and walked to the sofa to sit down. Tom Reggie secretly felt relieved inwardly and said, "Miss Viviani, you're my savior. If you need me, I'll also send some people to help you investigate your enemies. When the time comes, I'll personally lead some people to avenge you. Your enemies are also my enemies." Viviani slowly raised her head and looked at the serious Tom Reggie. Finally, she nodded and said, "Thank you, Tom Reggie. Miss Viviani, you'll always be the most dazzling person in my heart." Tom Reggie shook his head. "You don't need to be polite with me. Please take a rest first. I still have to go to Mr. Tang's place. If he hadn't told me about you, I'm afraid I wouldn't have known about it until now. Go." Viviani waved and said. After Tom Reggie left, Viviani nestled on the sofa. Tears slid down her delicate skin and wetted her clothes. She kept recalling the forces she had offended all these years, as well as the people she had offended before her loved ones died. Gradually, with her superb memory, she finally had dozens of suspects in her mind. She secretly decided that regardless of whether those people were the murderers of her loved ones or not, she would make all those forces disappear. "Mr. Tang?" Viviani wiped away the tears on her face. She got up from the sofa and walked out of the room. She wanted to meet Tan Xiu because she realized that he was the truly mature person. He was also the person who could see through the essence of many things. If he hadn't told Tom Reggie about it, perhaps he would have been plagued by anger and hatred. He would have left like a headless fly and then scurried around. At the seaside villa, Tan Xiu was chatting with Fatty Lee and his wife when he found out that Tom Reggie had returned. From him, he learned that Viviani had calmed down. At this time, Mo On, who was sitting cross-legged on the floor, suddenly jumped up. When he looked at the stairs, he saw a man coming with 2 bodyguards and immediately called out, "Boss, the guest is here." Tan Xiu looked at the direction of the stairs and saw Wang Rui with a cigarette in his mouth and a frivolous expression. He walked toward him. "Yo, Brother Tang's ability is not small. This beautiful woman who gambled with me is actually captivated by you?" Wang Rui said with a faint smile. "Don't talk nonsense, Viviani is just an ordinary friend of mine," said Tan Xiu. "But you know that you're going to fight my men tonight, yet you still don't know how to restrain yourself. You just wasted your physical strength on a woman's belly, didn't you?" "How did you know?" Wang Rui was surprised. Tan Xiu lightly said, "Your qi and blood are a bit weak, much worse than the last time we met. If your blood wasn't sucked by a legendary vampire, then you must have wasted your physical strength on a woman's belly." Wang Rui gave a thumbs up and praised, "Brother Tang, you can see through my physical condition. That's really amazing. I suddenly feel that playing with you is more interesting than playing with your men. How about we spar?" "I'll naturally accompany you to play if you can beat my men," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "But before that, I'll give you 2 hours to rest so that you won't feel that my men won unfairly." "It's all right. I don't need to rest." Wang Rui waved. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment and then said, "Then let's sit down and have a cup of tea. There's still half an hour left before the appointed time. We'll do it on the beach outside half an hour later. What do you think?" "It's settled then," said Wang Rui with a smile. After taking a seat, Wang Rui squinted his eyes as he observed Tan Xiao and smilingly asked, "Brother Tang, I only know your name, but I don't know where you're from. Even if I haven't seen the descendants of those big families in our country, I know some information about them, such as their photos and names. But I've never heard of you." "Just a nobody, not worth mentioning," said Tan Xiao with a light smile. "Those who can afford a powerful bodyguard are not simple." Wang Rui shook his head. "Tell me, maybe I'll know something about you." Tan Xiao was silent for a moment before he suddenly grinned and said, "As a matter of fact, I'm a student who's about to go to college. Besides, I'm also half a doctor and have worked in Star City Chinese Medical Hospital for a few days." "Student? Half a doctor?" Wang Rui didn't believe Tan Xiao's words at all. It was because when he was in the casino and separated from Tan Xiao, he immediately sent some people to investigate Tan Xiao. Although he didn't use the domestic news, he heard that Tan Xiao had won 1 billion yuan in the casino in Saipan. It was more than what he had won on the gambling table. However, he had won 1 billion yuan, yet he was still safe and sound until now. This made him surprised. "Brother Tang, you're not being honest. I'm afraid that Fatty Lee has told you everything about me, right? I asked you about your identity, yet you're hiding it. That's too boring." Wang Rui crossed his legs and lit a cigarette. "I'm not lying." Tan Xiao frowned. "I'm really going to college and I'm really half a doctor. You can investigate me if you don't believe me. However, I hate it when people investigate me. I usually make the other party pay some price if I know it." Wang Rui was silent for a moment before he suddenly laughed and said, "Since Brother Tang doesn't want to say it, then I won't force you. I won more money than you this time, so I'll treat you to a Manchu Han imperial feast after I return to China." Tan Xiao didn't care about such polite words and simply replied with a few words. He then looked at Imo-on and calmly said, "Bring out your strongest strength. Don't take it lightly and fail miserably." Imo-on glanced at Wang Rui and continued to carefully comprehend the changes in a martial artist's state of mind. Tan Xiao's words made him realize something and greatly improved his state of mind. Therefore, he was perfectly aware of one thing. Once he comprehended something in his cultivation, he would encounter an opportunity to progress. He also understood the importance of a cultivator's state of mind. If he could, he would comprehend it dozens of times every day. Time fleeted by. Tan Xiao suddenly got up and slowly said, "It's almost time, Imo-on. You and Mr. Wang go to the beach. Don't let others down, Mr. Wang." "I promise I won't. All the brothers and sisters who have subscribed to the Immortal World will get a free evaluation ticket. Brothers and sisters, please throw the evaluation ticket to Jingya. I'll be very grateful. It's on the right side of the introduction page." Chapter 292. The bright moonlight shone on the surface of the sea, sparkling in the majestic wind. Two ghost-like figures silently appeared on the beach by the sea. "I'm not as good as you in terms of speed." Wang Rui originally looked down on Imo-on, but he lost miserably in the speed contest just now. Even if he went all out and raised his speed to the limit, Imo-on still followed him at a moderate speed and didn't fall behind. It seemed that he was still holding back. Imo-on lightly smiled and said, "Show me all your strength. Don't let me lose my interest." Interest? A chilling light flashed in Wang Rui's eyes. He once told Tan Xiao that if he wanted to have passion, he must have a challenge. But now, Tan Xiao's bodyguard actually talked to him about interest. He was very dissatisfied. And the consequences would be very serious. "I'll go all out to defeat you and make you accept your defeat wholeheartedly. Then, I'll weigh your boss's weight." Imo-on hooked his finger and smilingly said, "You can't weigh my boss's weight. Bring it on. I'll use my strength to convince you." Mph. Wang Rui's fist turned into a palm as he moved his feet and appeared in front of Imo-on. His hand chopped horizontally and struck Imo-on's neck. His hand chopping speed was very fast, so fast that the wind whistled and the airwaves surged. Imo-on's toes touched the ground and his body instantly retreated. After avoiding Wang Rui's palm, his body soared into the air and his legs flew as he fiercely kicked Wang Rui. The shadows of his legs were continuous, making people unable to figure out which one was real and which one was illusory. Bam bam bam. Wang Rui's strike failed and he quickly whipped his leg. In the blink of an eye, the two had kicked each other more than a dozen times. The instep and calf collided. The huge vibrating force made the two's complexions slightly change at the same time. However, Wang Rui felt like he kicked an iron pole. The recoil made his right leg extremely painful, and his body kept retreating. On the contrary, Mo On's complexion only changed, but his valiant aura didn't weaken at all. He was like a maggot attached to the bone, and his legs were like long whips, lashing again and again. On the balcony of the villa, with his hands behind his back, Tan Xiao stood straight like a javelin as he looked at the two people fighting on the beach. Viviani and Fatty Li were standing on both sides of him. The two of them stared fixedly at the figures fighting on the beach, and their expressions became somewhat shocked. Viviani had great strength and speed, but she did not know how to use them. Although there was a huge gap between Mo On and Wang Rui in terms of speed and strength, the seemingly simple moves of the two contained very exquisite fighting skills, which made her mind swayed and shocked. Furthermore, a strong desire arose from the bottom of her heart. She wanted to learn from the two of them and enrich her own combat experience. Fatty Old Li's heart was filled with shock. He was also a martial artist. Although his physique had become fat and his skills were not as good as before, he could still be considered agile. He could deal with 3 to 5 local ruffians alone, and victory was in his grasp. However, the battle between Mo On and Wang Rui was an eye-opener for him. It was more visually impactful than watching a martial arts movie. From his point of view, it looked like there were two martial arts masters fighting on the beach. Their vigorous skills and exquisite moves dazzled him. Therefore, he was perfectly aware of one thing. If he were to go up and fight with either of them, he would probably be knocked down with a snap of his fingers. Chinese Kung Fu is indeed broad and profound. Fatty Old Li was shocked and excited as he sighed from the bottom of his heart. Tan Xiao turned his head to glance at him and smilingly said, "Your strength is also good, Fatty Old Li. You may be a bit fat, but ordinary people are not your match at all, no? What's wrong? Have you never seen a fight between experts of this level before?" "It's my first time seeing it." Fatty Old Li shook his head and forced a smile. Tan Xiao let out a faint smile and said, "That's right. There are countless people who practice martial arts in this world, but the real experts are as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. It's indeed an extremely difficult thing to see two experts at the same time and watch their fight. However, between the two of them, who do you think will win?" "I'm on," answered Fatty Old Li without hesitation. "Why are you so sure?" Tan Xiao raised his brows and smilingly asked. Pointing to the two men, Fatty Old Li said, "Wang Rui may be powerful, but he's obviously struggling. Take a look at Mo On. His attacks are steady and neither fast nor slow, but each of his moves is forcing Wang Rui to retreat. After blocking and dodging, he can occasionally launch a counterattack." "It seems that your vision is quite sharp, Fatty Old Li," Tan Xiao nodded and praised. "Wang Rui may be an expert with rich combat experience, but there's still a big gap between him and On. If nothing unexpected happens, Wang Rui will be defeated within 10 moves at most. Mr. Tang, if I have Wang Rui's combat experience and skills, do you think I can defeat your bodyguard?" Viviani suddenly asked. Tan Xiao rolled his eyes and snappily said, "If you really have rich combat experience, let alone On, I'm afraid even I won't be your opponent." Fatty Old Li didn't know Viviani's power and thought that Tan Xiao was flirting with her, so he said with a teasing expression, "Brother Tang, it's not like you can't beat her. It's obvious that you have tender feelings for the fairer sex and don't want to hurt this beauty. But do you really know Kung Fu? And you're very powerful?" "I know a bit of Kung Fu. I can't say how powerful I am, but I can protect myself," Tan Xiao said with a smile. Fatty Old Li didn't know Tan Xiao for a long time, but he found that Tan Xiao was an extremely low-key young man. He felt that Tan Xiao's words were too modest. Even if his Kung Fu was not as good as his bodyguard's, it was likely that he was much stronger than him. On the beach, Wang Rui's moves were as fast as lightning. Nearly all of his fierce moves were killing moves. Unfortunately, he still couldn't do anything to Mo On even if he burst out with his extraordinary strength. He even faintly felt that Mo-on didn't seem to go all out as he kept retreating. That's right. He went all out. But Mo-on didn't go all out. This kind of feeling made him a bit shocked and a bit sullen. Wang Rui's footsteps finally came to a halt amidst the exchange of punches and kicks. Despite being seriously injured, he crazily blasted out dozens of punches, leaving afterimages that made people's hearts tremble. I thought you were very powerful when boss asked me to compete with you. It turns out that I haven't even used 70% of my strength, yet you've been forced into a desperate situation. Such being the case, let's end this quickly. After Mo-on and Wang Rui exchanged dozens of punches, the moment Wang Rui staggered back, Mo-on suddenly appeared behind him. Mo-on's strange fist trajectory seemed to be bombarding Wang Rui's back, but in fact, the moment Wang Rui dodged, it bombarded his shoulder. Along with the sound of bone dislocation, Wang Rui's body was like a fallen leaf, smashing toward the beach 7 or 8 meters away. Amidst the dull sound, Wang Rui's face paled as he fell on the beach and then jumped up like a carp. Shock flashed in his eyes as he looked at Mo-on, who stood 7 to 8 meters away and didn't pursue him. A strong bitter taste filled his heart. He was defeated. He knew that he lost, and he was convinced of his defeat. Mo-on's strength was too strong, the strongest he had ever seen in his life. He had fought with countless martial arts masters in the country and always won by relying on his absolute strength. When he was overseas, he had also met many experts. Whether it was an expert who had obtained the title of King of Fighters, a Muay Thai expert, or a Taekwondo or Judo expert, no one could beat him. As a result, he lost to someone else's bodyguard. I don't get it. With your strength, it's easy for you to build your own business. Why do you want to be someone else's bodyguard? Wang Rui slowly said. Mo-on smiled and said, "Don't you think being a bodyguard is a good job?" Wang Rui frowned and said in a deep voice, "If you really want to be a bodyguard, how much will Tan Xiu pay you? I can give you 10 times. Mo-on shook his head and said, "You can't give me what I want. Besides, I'm not the boss's bodyguard, but his subordinate. If anyone dares to harm the boss, I won't hesitate to exchange my life for the boss's. Also, you can't even beat me, let alone the boss's opponent." What? Wang Rui's complexion changed and his breathing became hurried. He stared at Mo-on and hurriedly asked, "You mean Tan Xiu's strength is more powerful than yours?" Mo-on lightly said, "Boss's strength is more powerful than mine. Even if there are 10 of you, I'm afraid you won't be the boss's opponent." After saying that, he turned around and walked toward the villa. Wang Rui's complexion constantly changed as he recalled what he said to Tan Xiu in the casino. He also recalled the arrogant look he showed in front of Tan Xiu when he came to the villa. Deep shame and embarrassment grew inside his heart and quickly climbed up to his face. He felt that he was playing with a big knife in front of Guan Yu. He didn't know how much face he had lost. How many years has it been? How many years has it been since I've been so humiliated? Wang Rui forced a smile and shook his head as he followed Mo-on to the villa. His right arm was dislocated and he couldn't fight anymore, so he needed to find someone to reattach his bones quickly. On the villa's balcony, Tan Xiu, Viviani, and Fatty Li looked at the two who came back. They already knew the result of the fight, but they didn't show any mocking expression to Wang Rui. It was all because of him. Mo-on was too strong. Among them, Tan Xiu was the most depressed. He thought that Wang Rui and Mo-on's strength were equal, and letting Mo-on fight with Wang Rui would be beneficial to Mo-on. However, Mo-on suddenly had an epiphany and his strength advanced by leaps and bounds, causing Wang Rui to be no match for him. So, apart from striking Wang Rui's spirit, this fight didn't have any other effect. Boss, Mo-on was as respectful as ever. Tan Xiu said with a smile, "Your performance was good, but unfortunately, you didn't achieve my goal. However, it's a good thing that your strength has improved. Silent Night has been streaking for a month. During this period, all kinds of data have seriously declined. I can only rely on the recommendation votes, monthly votes, and evaluation votes of my brothers and sisters. I ask my brothers and sisters to move your fingers to prop up the data of the immortal world. Thank you very much, Carrot Under the Chapter 293. Looking at the dejected and embarrassed Wang Ri, Tan Xiu said with a smile, "Don't be discouraged. There's no end to the path of martial arts. Sometimes setbacks are a good thing. Those who practice martial arts must guard against arrogance and rashness. You must know that there is always someone better than you out there. I'll wait for you to challenge my men when you become stronger." Wang Rui took a deep breath and said with a serious expression, "I'll challenge your men again, but my ultimate goal is you. I hope I can challenge you and defeat you one day." "I'll be waiting," Tan Xiu said with a smile. At the side, with a strange expression, Viviani suddenly came before Mo On and said, "Teach me martial arts. I can worship you as my master." Worship as his master? Mo On stared blankly for a moment before he immediately looked at Tan Xiu. "Don't look at me." Tan Xiu waved his hand. "I don't care." Mo On pondered for a moment before he looked at Viviani and slowly said, "I don't know how to teach disciples, nor do I have the intention to accept one. I'm sorry. I'm willing to pay any price as long as you can make me as powerful as you," said Viviani quickly. "How about I give you money? I have money, a lot of money." "I don't lack money." Mo On shook his head and said, "Even if you give me a mountain of gold, I won't accept you as my disciple. Because I don't have much time." Viviani turned to look at Tan Xiu with a pleading look in her eyes. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he shook his head and said, "Since he doesn't want to accept you as his disciple, there's nothing I can do. Although he's my man, I won't force him to do anything he doesn't want to do. Besides, he's not suitable for you. What he knows is killing techniques. For example, the fight between him and Wang Rui just now. If it were a head-on fight, Wang Rui would have been killed by him in 10 moves at most." Wang Rui stared blankly. A trace of anger appeared in his eyes as he said, "Tan Xiu, don't you think your words are a bit too much? Even if I'm not as good as Mo On, he can't kill me in 10 moves, can he?" Mo On interjected, "I don't need 10 moves. I can kill you in 5 moves at most." Wang Rui's lips squirmed a few times, but no sound came out. However, the look of disbelief on his face completely expressed his thoughts. Tan Xiu moved like lightning and grabbed Wang Rui's arm. Before Wang Rui could react, his wrist shook and his other hand grabbed Wang Rui's shoulder. With a click, Wang Rui's expression changed greatly. His dislocated arm had been connected. After Tan Xiu stopped, he calmly said, "There is no need to not believe it. When Owen fought with you, he could have killed you many times, but he was clear that you are not an enemy, so he showed mercy. Moreover, he didn't even use his full strength when he fought with you." Wang Rui waved his arm and felt that his dislocated arm only felt a faint pain without any other symptoms. The anger in his eyes slowly disappeared and was replaced by a bitter smile. He nodded and said, "He didn't go all out, I know that." Tan Xiu turned to look at the unwilling Viviani and suddenly said with a smile, "Actually, I have a way to make you stronger, but it's very dangerous." Viviani's spirit shook. Her heart was full of hatred. She wanted to find the person who killed her family and take revenge, so she hurriedly asked, "What is it?" "We'll discuss this matter later," said Tan Xiu. After that, he then looked at Fatty Li and Wang Rui and said with a light smile, "The two of you, today's matter is over. Shouldn't you go back and rest?" Wang Rui cupped his fists and turned around to leave with his 2 men. Fatty Li didn't move. He looked at Tan Xiu and smilingly asked, "Brother Tang, you haven't enjoyed such a good program like the 7 Goddesses dance yet. You won't go tonight since you have a beauty to accompany you. But will you go tomorrow? If you can complete the whole process of the 7 Goddesses dance, this Fatty Li will treat you to wine and meat." "It depends on the situation," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "I'm going to leave tomorrow. If the storm at sea hasn't ended, then I'll stay for another day and then go to the 7 Goddesses dance." Fatty Old Li was surprised. "You're leaving? Where are you going?" Fatty Li was astonished. "I'm going to explore the sea." Tan Xiu shook his head. Fatty Li looked at Tan Xiu with a strange expression. He then shook his head and smilingly said, "Youngsters nowadays have a good idea. But remember, if you're going to explore, don't tell that brat from Qingqing Mountain. Else, he'll follow you like a dog skin plaster. You can't get rid of him even if you want to. I understand. Tan Xiu nodded. He didn't plan to tell anyone about the private island he bought except for those close to him. After all, he wanted to turn it into his territory and a base to train his armed forces. He would never let it be exposed if he could. Following Fatty Li's departure, Tang Xiu motioned for Mo On and Mo On to go back to rest. He then took Viviani to the living room inside and said, "If you want to become stronger, you can go to some training camps to train after you've finished your revenge. I've heard On and the others talk about it. There are many training camps in the world that specialize in training experts. You can quickly stand out if you're willing to go." Training camps? Viviani recalled Tom Reggie's past experience and nodded without a word. She used to be soft-hearted and soft-hearted. She didn't even kill those who did evil deeds. She just taught them a lesson and then extorted a large sum of money from them. But now, only now did she realize that her soft-heartedness had caused the death of many of her loved ones. "Thank you, Tan Xiu." After saying that, Viviani turned around and left. Looking at her back, Tan Xiu secretly sighed inwardly. He didn't know whether it was good or bad for Viviani to tell her about this. But he felt that it would be a waste of Viviani's special energy if he could not make her stronger. The Seven Goddesses Dance? Tan Xiu recalled the program he had chosen before and secretly shook his head. Fatty Li's deliberately mystifying act had aroused a strong curiosity in his heart. In any case, he couldn't sleep now, so he decided to experience this program and see what was so magical about it. "Help me arrange the Seven Goddesses Dance." Using the building's landline, Tan Xiu dialed Jasmine's number and spoke straightforwardly. "All right, someone will take you there immediately." A few minutes later, a gorgeously dressed girl in an evening gown came to Tan Xiu's residence. She spoke in fluent English. "Are you Mr. Tang? Vice President Jasmine asked me to take you to the entertainment center." "Yes, it's me." Tan Xiu nodded. Following behind the girl, Tan Xiu curiously asked, "Belle, can you tell me in advance what kind of program the Seven Goddesses Dance is? Why are you always so mysterious, my friend?" The girl couldn't help but laugh and asked with a smile, "You don't know what kind of program the Seven Goddesses Dance is?" "I really don't know." Tan Xiu shook his head. "Since you don't know, then come with me," the girl said with a smile. "You'll know after you see it. You'll definitely enjoy it as long as you live well." "Live well? What does that mean?" A puzzled expression hung on Tan Xiu's face. Seeing that the girl didn't want to say more, he could only suppress the doubt in his heart and follow her. 7 or 8 minutes later, the two of them came to a European-style building. As far as Tan Xiu could see, he found that the building's construction was very strange. Not to mention that its exterior was painted red. The curtains of each window were drawn, revealing red, orange, red, green, cyan, blue, and purple colors inside. "Welcome." 4 beautiful women in long skirts stood outside the front door of the building and bowed to Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu nodded and followed the girl from before into the building. He found that the interior decoration style was full of ambiguous atmosphere. A shiny steel pipe was erected in the middle of the hall, and the surrounding walls shimmered with golden light under the illumination of the lights. Not only were there many strangely shaped beauties, but there were also many handsome and cool men. "Mr. Tang, our entertainment center has a total of 7 floors. How many times do you want to go there?" The girl led Tan Xiu to the elevator door and asked with a smile. "What's the difference?" asked Tan Xiu. "The higher the floor, the more beautiful the girls here are, and the more expensive the price will be," said the girl. "However, the vice general manager said that all your expenses here are free of charge, so you can choose the floor you want to go to." "To the 7th floor," said Tan Xiu without hesitation. "All right." As the elevator door opened, the girl led Tan Xiu to the 7th floor. When the two of them took the elevator to the 7th floor, just as they walked out of the elevator, Tan Xiu saw a scantily dressed woman with an extremely hot figure standing outside with a bright smile on her face. The girl who led the way introduced, "Mr. Tang, this is Rival, the person in charge of the 7th floor. My mission has been completed since I sent you here. I wish you a pleasant stay here." After saying that, she slightly bowed to Tan Xiu, then returned to the elevator and directly left. Lead the way. Tan Xiao faintly sensed something, but he couldn't be sure yet, so he directly said to Rival. Please. Rival led Tan Xiao through the purple lights, through 2 corridors, and came to an exquisitely decorated room with an ambiguous style. She then said with a smile, Please take a rest first, Mr. Tang. There are fruits and desserts on the table, and there are various drinks in the fridge next to it. If you want to take a shower first, you can go to the bathroom in the side room. Give us 20 minutes to prepare. The program will officially begin after 20 minutes. Is this program troublesome? Asked Tan Xiao. It's not troublesome at all, said Rival with a smile. It's absolutely the best enjoyment in the world as long as you have good skills. If you have no other instructions, then I'll take my leave first. Tan Xiao waved his hand and looked at the 200 to 300 square meters hall. Luxurious. Extravagant. In front of the long leather sofa was a row of long tables. The table was filled with all kinds of snacks and fruits. There were even a lot of exquisite side dishes. There was even a stack of fashion magazines on the small cabinet next to the sofa. A 60-inch LCD TV hung on the wall. Although it was muted, the pictures of beautiful women were playing on it. Let's take a shower. We're about to reach the climax of the plot. Brothers and sisters, please toss your free review tickets to Silent Night. Chapter 294. Glancing at the convertible sports car, Tang Xiao nodded and walked around the car. After sitting on the front seat, he looked at Jasmine, who was sitting on the front seat, and lightly said, Your resort has set up a casino and even has such a place. Don't tell me you're not afraid of the government's inspection here? Looking at Tan Xiao with a strange expression, Jasmine chuckled and said, Mr. Tang, you don't know this. The big leader of the government here is someone with real power and shares in this place. Every year, he gets a big bonus. So that's how it is. Tan Xiao nodded and sighed inwardly. He didn't feel like saying more about the official's protection. After all, this phenomenon was too common. Not to mention foreign countries, it was a normal thing even in China. 2 minutes later, the convertible was parked in front of the beach villa where Tan Xiao lived. Good night, Mr. Tang. Jasmine came down from the front seat and said with a smile. Tan Xiao nodded. Just as he was about to enter the small courtyard, he suddenly recalled something and quickly asked, Vice General Manager Jasmine, you should be concerned about the ocean weather, right? Will there be another storm at sea tomorrow? Tonight's ocean weather forecast report shows that the sea is very calm, said Jasmine. But I don't think this report can be trusted. The weather changes very fast at sea. It may be calm just now, but a big storm will appear after a while. You mean the ocean weather is capricious? Asked Tan Xiao. That's exactly what I mean. Jasmine nodded. Tan Xiao thought for a moment and then said in a deep voice, Since the ocean weather is capricious, then I don't need to stay here for long. Tell Tom Reggie that we'll leave here early tomorrow morning. We'll stay here after we come back from the sea. All right. Jasmine nodded. Early morning the next day, Tan Xiao left the Lao Bay resort with the Mo brothers. Tom Reggie sent someone to take them to the Red Sand Bay port. When the 3 of them arrived, they saw a makeshift deck that extended dozens of meters into the sea. It was the landing port of the luxury liner. Tom Reggie had already arrived and was waiting for Tan Xiao's group. After seeing their arrival, Tom Reggie smilingly said, Everything is ready. I sent people to the sea at night to sail dozens of nautical miles. Everything is normal. In addition, the personnel on the liner, as well as the food and drinks you will need for the journey, have all been prepared. It will be enough for you to play at sea for a week. Tan Xiao smiled and said, Thank you. You're welcome, replied Tom Reggie with a grin. Tom Reggie accompanied Tan Xiao's trio to board the passenger ship. After touring the ship, Tan Xiao suddenly asked, Tom Reggie, how much would it cost me to buy this ship of yours? Tom Reggie stared blankly for a moment before revealing an awkward expression. After a few seconds of silence, he slowly said, I ordered this passenger ship from another country, and the designer is also the best in the world. We spent a total of $160 million on it. Sell it to me for $200 million, said Tan Xiao with a smile. Tom Reggie's expression moved. He looked at the silent Mo on at the side and finally nodded and said, "If that's the case, then I'll sell it to you." Tan Xiao said with a smile, "Just prepare the monopoly procedures. I'll give you the money once we come back and sign the contract." No problem. Since Tom Reggie had already made his decision, he directly agreed. Just do it. The price Tan Xiao offered was very high, but he still felt a bit of heartache. After all, Tan Xiao had won 1 billion in his casino last night. Although it was in RMB, it was still more than 100 million US dollars. In other words, Tan Xiao only spent tens of millions to buy his liner. As Tom Reggie got off the ship, the liner officially set sail. The blue sky and the blue seawater echoed each other as far as the eye could see. Standing on the front deck of the liner, Tan Xiao watched the scenery braving the wind and waves. A faint expectation rose in his heart. He was looking forward to rushing to Nine Dragons Island to take over his territory. But now, the person in charge of managing Nine Dragons Island was the previous seller's man. However, news came more than a month ago that the other party was preparing to take the people away. As for when he would take it over, it was his own business. Tan Xiao didn't have the time to rush there before. Now that he thought about it, there should be no one managing the place. Nine Dragons Island is located in the sea region. Its geographical location is very special and few people would go there. So, I'm afraid there's no one on the island now. As he thought up to there, Tan Xiao let out a faint smile. He didn't care whether there was anyone on the island or not. Even if there was, he must drive them away. He was the owner of the island, and no one could set foot on the island without his permission. Boss, phone. Mo On came behind Tan Xiao and handed him a satellite phone. After receiving it, Tan Xiao said in a deep voice, "Tan Xiao speaking." Gu Xiaoshua's voice came from the phone. "Are you on the way to Nine Dragons Island now, Grandmaster? I'm not disturbing you, am I?" Upon hearing Gu Xiaoshua's voice, Tan Xiao immediately let out a smile and said, "It's all right. The liner just set sail not long ago. Is there something you need from me?" "It's like this, Grandmaster," said Gu Xiaoshua. "Tian Li and Hao Lei have come back and told Elder Ji about your intention. Also, Tian Li and the others brought a total of 28 billion yuan back. Should I transfer the money to your account now? Or should I wait for you to come back?" After pondering for a moment, Tan Xiao then said with a smile, "You keep 18 billion and transfer 10 billion to me." Wang Dong and another man stealthily appeared from behind a huge boulder. After they came to Tan Xiao's side, they quickly glanced at the palace and then whispered, "There's a special situation here, boss. We can't go inside for the time being." "What's the situation?" asked Tan Xiao with a frown. "Who are those people in the palace?" Tan Xiao frowned. "We came here a few days earlier than you, boss." Wang Dong forced a wry smile and said, "We found a group of pirates occupying this place when we arrived. The most important thing is that those pirates also captured hundreds of civilians and detained them here." "How many pirates are there?" asked Tan Xiao. "There are more than 200 of them and each of them has a gun in their hands," said Wang Dong. "Wolfhead was investigating the situation in the vicinity yesterday and was discovered by one of the pirates. Wolfhead killed the pirate and then took us to wander near the 9 ports on the island, waiting for your arrival, boss." "Contact Wolfhead and the others and tell them to come here immediately," said Tan Xiao. "Understood," Wang Dong replied and quickly took out his satellite phone. Half an hour later, Wolfhead and the other 10 men arrived. "Boss, did Wang Dong tell you about the situation here?" asked Wolfhead. "He did," said Tan Xiao. "Where did these pirates come from? Have you asked them clearly?" "I've asked them clearly," said Wolfhead. "They're pirates who roam the nearby waters and have no fixed base. They've been staying here for more than 10 years because there are very few ships passing by here. They barely have enough to eat and wear. This pirate group is called the Bloodfish Pirates, and their leader is Duff Sky, a ruthless international wanted criminal. After they came to Nine Dragons Island a few days ago, they slaughtered the people who were guarding the palace and successfully occupied this place." Chapter 295. "I heard that they captured a group of civilians?" asked Tan Xiao. "That's right. Wolfhead forced a smile. I interrogated a pirate. They have been in a bad situation recently, so they secretly sent people to sneak into Wake Island and got a fortune there. They also captured hundreds of civilians here, almost half of whom were women. A cold light flashed in Tan Shio's eyes. He was perfectly aware of what kind of treatment those women would suffer if they were captured by the pirates. He rarely had murderous intent, but he would never show mercy to the pirates who committed all kinds of crimes. We must get rid of all these pirates. Wolfhead solemnly said, We don't have any weapons in our hands, boss. We'll suffer losses even if we kill all of them. I think we need to make a plan and then implement it according to it. You've been here for so many days. What's your plan? Asked Tan Shio. We've scouted the situation here. The members of the Bloodfish Pirates are all in the vicinity of this palace, said Wolfhead. There are several places guarded by pirates. I think we must get rid of those pirates as fast as possible once we act. We need to seize the guns from them. Then we'll sneak into the palace. It's best if we can find the pirate leader, Duff Sky. As long as we can capture him, it'll be a lot easier for us. To catch the bandits, we must first capture the leader. Your idea is good. However, after we catch Duff Sky, we must kill as many pirates as possible without exposing ourselves. The more of them die, the less danger we'll face later on. Oh, you and Wolfhead will team up. Our target is Duff Sky. The rest will act according to the plan, Tan Shio coldly said. Understood. Tan Shio looked at Mo and said, Go and call on. One more person means more strength. We must not let any of the pirates escape. I'll go now, said Mo in a deep voice. Soon after, a plan was made. A plan was made and repeatedly checked to ensure that there were no loopholes. Only then did Tang Shio issue the attack order after Mo and Mo arrived. He didn't act together with Wolfhead, Mo and the others. Instead, he quietly approached the castle like a ghost. Due to the effect of his divine sense, the scenery within a radius of 200 meters was enveloped by his divine sense. Coupled with his keen eyesight, he soon arrived outside the castle's courtyard walls. It seems that these pirates are going to settle down on Nine Dragons Island. There are surveillance cameras installed in many places throughout the castle. The coldness in Tan Shio's eyes intensified. After he silently climbed over the wall, he quickly hid in the bushes. Just then, a drunken pirate with a gun on his back came out of the building and walked towards Tan Shio's hiding place. You're courting death. Tan Shio snorted coldly in his heart. When the other party was only 6 to 7 meters away from him, he took off his pants and was about to pee. The sharp dagger tore open his throat, and as blood spurted out, it pierced his heart. Tan Shio swiftly dragged his body into the bushes. Near the palace, 2 pirates were carrying long guns as they yawned and chatted idly. One of them took out a cigarette and lit it up. After taking a deep puff, he sullenly mumbled, Damn it, it's such a good night. The others can play with women in their rooms, but us brothers can only be on night duty here. I'll talk to the second leader some other day and try to transfer us brothers to be on duty during the day. The other pirate grinned and said, Just be content with what you have. We've already tormented those women enough during the day. Even if you don't have to be on duty at night, can you still charge and break through enemy lines with that thing of yours? Who said I can't? Even if I have to do it twice more, I can. Before he could finish his words, a pair of big hands covered his mouth from behind. A sharp Mitsubishi Army knife stretched out from behind and directly slit his throat. Then he saw that his pirate brother's mouth was also covered, and the Mitsubishi Army knife was used to slit his throat and stab his heart. His consciousness turned fuzzy. Wang Ming made an okay gesture to one of his companions. Then, the 2 of them picked up the long guns from the 2 corpses and quickly sneaked inside. At the same time, in 3 other places, 6 pirates on night duty were also mercilessly killed. Their corpses were either in a standing position, leaning against a tree or leaning against a wall. All their guns had been taken away. In the woods behind the palace, Tan Shio had already circled around. His divine senses could only cover 1/5 of the area of this magnificent palace. But perhaps he was lucky, he had already found Duff Sky's location. Next to Duff Sky, there was a naked woman lying on the ground. He was sure of it. That person was Duff Sky, because Wolf had secretly taken a photo of her, and the person in the photo looked exactly like that person. Like an agile ape, Tan Xiu quietly climbed to the window on the second floor and then quietly entered the palace. This was a gym with a lot of fitness equipment, which had obviously been left behind by the original owner. In the gym, a pirate was hugging a woman who was covered in wounds and had tears on her face. She was fast asleep. Puff! The dagger easily tore open the pirate's throat. Without disturbing the woman, Tan Xiu quietly opened the door and walked out. Very quickly, at the corner of the corridor, Tan Xiu killed 2 pirates passing by and smoothly reached Duffsky's room. Who's there? Duff Sky was very vigilant, and the faint sound of the door opening still woke him up. In a flash, he put his hand under the pillow. Puff! The dagger in Tan Xiu's hand shot out and accurately pierced Duffsky's hand. Then he sprinted to Duff Sky, and when he punched him hard in the head, he covered his mouth with his other hand. Bang! All of a sudden, Tan Xiu felt someone punch him in the back, and the huge force made him grunt. After he jumped off the bed, he saw that the naked woman had already jumped up from the bed and was in a fighting stance. She was the enemy. A cold light flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes, and he sprinted toward her. If it was an ordinary woman who was kidnapped, he would not kill her, but for a female pirate, he would not be merciful. He didn't act, but the moment he did, he quickly knocked down his opponent and easily killed her. Tang Xiu turned his head to look at Duff Sky, who was knocked out by him. He could only force a wry smile inwardly. He had just ignored women, and only now did he suddenly realize that men were not the only threat to him. Women were also very dangerous. Fortunately, this woman did not have a weapon in her hand. If she had a gun, he would have been shot. Even if it did not kill him, he would still be injured at such a close distance when he was caught off guard. In addition, being injured was a small matter. After all, a bullet could not easily enter his body. But as long as the gunshot was heard, it would naturally be very loud in this dark night, and by then, all the pirates in the entire palace would be awakened. Tan Xiu found a rope, tied the fainted Duff Sky, and directly left the room. He could now launch a sneak attack on those pirates. If he could kill more, he would be in less danger later. 10 minutes later, dozens of pirates were killed in their sleep. There were also dozens of pirates who were plowing on women and were also mercilessly killed. As for those women, almost all of them were poor people who had been kidnapped. Tan Xiu and his men did not kill them, but directly knocked them out. Bang! A gunshot broke the silence of the night. Immediately, pirates in disheveled clothes rushed out of the castle. They were armed with guns and shouted loudly, asking what was going on and who was the one who fired the gun. Taking advantage of the chaos, Tan Xiu and the other 14 people killed more than 20 people with sneak attacks. Counterattack. After Tan Xiu appeared beside Wolfhead and Moo, he gave the order without hesitation. A fierce gunfight was going on in the castle. With the cooperation of Tan Xiu and the others, those pirates were simply unable to withstand a single blow. After the bullets in their guns were used up, they had killed hundreds of pirates since the beginning. At this moment, Moo learned from Tan Xiu that Duff Sky was in the room, so he brought him here. In the corridor, Moo woke Duff Sky up. Damn it, who are you people? After Duff Sky woke up, he found that he was tied with a Mitsubishi Army knife on his neck. He immediately shouted. Tan Xiu sneered, I'm the owner of this island. Tell your men to put down their guns and go to the square outside the castle. Otherwise, I don't mind killing you first. Duffsky's eyes flickered. Chapter 296. A roar came from the corridor. Shortly after, intensive gunshots rang out. Don't let them run away. Kill them. Dozens of pirates rushed over with guns. When they kicked open the doors, they found that there was no one inside, and the windows were all open. 2 minutes later, in the lush woods behind the castle, Tan Xiu and the others had gathered here. Except for one of them who was shot in the arm, the others were all intact. Tan Xiu patted the injured man's shoulder and asked in a low voice, Is your injury serious? I'm fine. The man shook his head. Tan Xiu turned to look at Wolfhead and asked in a deep voice, Who's the pirate who fired the gun? He dared to kill Duff Sky. Isn't he afraid that the other pirates will kill him? He's the Bloodfish Pirates' second leader, said Wolfhead. It's my fault for not arranging this matter well. I forgot that these pirates are ruthless and ruthless. The other pirates won't blame him for killing Duff Sky. Those pirates are not stupid. They know very well that they will likely be killed by us after they surrender. Tan Shio nodded and said, tonight's operation has failed, so we'll evacuate immediately. I can't see our people losing for the sake of some pirates. In any case, we still have plenty of time. If they have the guts, they can continue to stay in this castle. Boss, your next plan is? Wolfhead curiously asked. My plan is very simple. Tan Shio sneered. We'll look for every opportunity to sneak attack those pirates. Killing one more is one more. In short, I want to kill them and make them flee in panic. As long as they escape from the castle, their death will be closer. The others looked at each other and nodded. They didn't have a good impression of the pirates who committed all kinds of crimes, so they didn't hesitate to kill them. Late at night, 2 kilometers away from the castle, Tan Shio and the others were hiding in the rocks and bushes, quietly observing the direction of the castle. They could hear gunshots coming from there, along with the roars of the pirates. The sound was getting closer and closer. 10 people, all with submachine guns. They are only about 650 meters away from us. They are searching for us. Standing behind the mountain rock, Wolfhead poked his head out to observe and whispered. Tan Shio gestured to the Mo brothers, and the 2 quietly slipped into the nearby thicket. Tan Shio said in a low voice, Wolfhead, immediately attack them once they arrive nearby. Remember, assign the tasks well and try to kill them all as soon as possible. Wolfhead said in a low voice. 7 or 8 minutes later, 10 armed pirates rushed over with their guns. They did not use flashlights because the enemy was in the dark and they did not want to be ambushed again. Shio! 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 A few figures silently appeared near the 10 pirates. When the daggers stabbed into the pirates' bodies, they launched an even more ferocious attack as the pirate screamed in pain. Despite the resentment in his heart, he still acted respectfully. Ingelund dropped Hutu and said in a deep voice, Withdraw all our brothers to the castle and prepare everything in the castle. Gather all the weapons in the castle together. We can't stay on this island anymore. Otherwise, we'll all be killed by the enemy. Second chieftain, you mean we're going to run away? One of the pirate leaders asked loudly. It's a humiliation to use the word run away to describe us, said Ingelund in a deep voice. But it's the truth. The enemy is too powerful. I used to serve in the M country's Marine Corps and fought with top fighters from countless countries around the world. I know the strength of those who ambushed us. They don't have many people, only a dozen or so. But whether it's their individual quality or teamwork, they're the most powerful characters I've ever encountered in my life. We'll die here if we don't run away. We'll be constantly ambushed and killed by them. Do you want to die here? We don't want to. All the remaining pirates roared loudly. Since you don't want to die, then run away from here and run far away. Ingelund shouted in a deep voice. We're pirates. We'll run away immediately if we encounter a powerful character. We'll squeeze all the benefits out of them if we encounter a pushover. So get ready and leave this island immediately. Understood. Chapter 297. Dozens of pirates returned to the castle one after another and began to prepare all the weapons and ammunition as well as food to leave. They were all outlaws, but they didn't want to die. They became pirates because they had committed heinous crimes and were wanted by Interpol. On the other hand, they felt that robbing and plundering was in line with their style of doing things. They could live. Who would want to die? They would have nothing left if they died. The burly man came to Ingelund's side and asked in a deep voice, Second chieftain, what should we do with the people we captured? Kill them all? Ingelund frowned and asked in a deep voice, How many people are left? Apart from the 7 you just killed, there are 126 left, answered the burly man. They are being held by our brothers. We'll immediately kill them all as long as you give the order. How much food is left in the castle? Asked Ingelund again. It's enough for us brothers to eat for 2 months, answered the burly man. A sharp glint flickered in Ingeland's eyes as he said in a deep voice, "Take 10 people and leave the rest here. Do remember to take away all the food in the palace." Those people said that this is their turf, so I want to see how they deal with the remaining people. Why do you want to leave them here, second chieftain? The burly man was puzzled and asked, Most of them are women, and there are even dozens of them. Wouldn't it be too easy to leave them to our enemies? What the fuck do you know? Sneered Ingeland. We'll take away all the food. They won't have anything to eat even if they stay here. If those people don't care about the lives of these people and don't want to share their food with those women, then those women will starve to death. But if we share it with those women, will the food they brought with them be enough? You mean to make those women a burden to the enemy? Asked the burly man in surprise. That's right, Ingeland proudly replied. The burly man hesitated for a moment and said, Then why don't we leave all the women behind? And take 10 of them? Ingeland slapped the man's head and angrily cursed, Are you an idiot or what? Whether or not we can escape safely, no one can say for sure. Now, we can only hope that they care about the civilians we captured. If they care, we can use the 10 people we took as hostages. I understand. The burly man scratched the top of his head, and an evil grin appeared on his rough face. The members of the Bloodfish Pirates moved very quickly. They usually did this kind of thing. Therefore, in just half an hour, all the weapons and rations in the castle were packed properly. Everyone carried big and small bags, and under the protection of 20 to 30 armed pirates, they quietly left through a small path behind the castle. As for the civilians they had captured, they were all locked up in a hall. Even the windows were nailed shut by them. Halfway up the mountain behind the castle, Wang Ming and another partner were hiding in the grass with mini binoculars in their hands as they observed the situation in the direction of the castle. Someone's coming, Wang Ming suddenly said in a low voice. Another person observed for more than 10 seconds and said in a low voice, It's the pirates in the castle. From the looks of it, they're preparing to escape. Wang Ming nodded, took out his satellite phone, and dialed a number. Wolfhead, the pirates are going to escape. They're carrying a lot of weapons and rations, and they're also holding 10 civilians. They're heading toward the direction of the mountain. Roger. Pay attention to hiding. Wolfhead's voice came from the satellite phone. In another direction. Wolfhead put away the satellite phone and looked at Tan Xiu next to him, saying, Boss, those pirates are preparing to escape. They're heading toward Wang Ming's direction. They should want to go down the mountain through that path. I suspect their ship is hiding there. Tan Xiu sneered, Let's follow them. Find the right opportunity and kill them. Tell the others that safety comes first. Understood. Wolfhead immediately used the satellite phone to edit a message and send it out. 10 minutes later, Tan Xiu led Wolfhead and the others and appeared at the location of Wang Ming's group. Through the mini binoculars, Tan Xiu watched the pirates leaving on the winding mountain road below. He sneered and said in a deep voice, How many people can you kill if you sneak attack them without accidentally injuring those civilians? Mo thought for a moment and said, At least 10. Tan Xiu nodded, Then go. Give them some trouble while you're at it and slow down their escape. Understood. Mo and all replied and quickly disappeared into the nearby thicket. Tan Xiu looked at Wolfhead and said, Take your men and penetrate from both sides. Try to lay a trap at the place where they are escaping in 20 minutes. Then kill as many pirates as you can. Understood. Wolfhead licked his lips and complied. He immediately left with the other 11 men. Tan Xiu stepped on the mountain rocks and quickly chased them down. His speed was very fast, and it was as if he was walking on flat ground. In just 2 minutes, he was already hundreds of meters behind the other side. Moreover, he hid on a big tree without the other side noticing him. Tudu. A series of gunshots rang out as more than a dozen pirates in the front fell to the ground. 2 submachine guns spat out flames as they harvested the lives of the pirates in front like harvesting wheat. Ingeland, who was in the front, would have been shot to death had it not been for his quick reaction to instantly grab a pirate at the side to block a string of bullets for him. Disperse and counterattack. Ingelund pushed away the pirate's body that had been shot into a sieve and rushed into the nearby thicket like a cheetah. After rolling a few times, he adjusted his posture in the thicket and aimed the submachine gun's muzzle at the direction where the bullets came from. Toot-toot, toot-toot, the dark muzzle was aimed at the front. As the trigger was pulled, bullets shot out like a torrent of raindrops. Branches were thrown and rocks were splashed everywhere. However, the gunshots had stopped, and the two attackers had long since left that position. At this moment, the other pirates also took their guns and began to counterattack the place where the bullets came from. Along with the loud gunshots, they kept shooting for half a minute. Some of them even replaced the second magazine. "Stop firing and save the ammunition," Ingelund shouted in a deep voice. Immediately, the pirates no longer fired, but they still hid in the surrounding thicket, looking for the sneak attack through the gaps of the branches and leaves. Unfortunately, no matter how hard they looked, they couldn't find any clues. The deathly stillness was particularly horrifying. Intense fear rose inside every pirate's heart, because they couldn't even see the enemy's shadow, yet more than a dozen of their brothers had been mercilessly shot to death. Through the gaps of the branches and leaves, they could see their brothers falling in a pool of blood. Their hearts had already fallen into the abyss. Second leader, what should we do? Hutu, who was holding a sniper rifle, observed through the sniper scope for a long time. After not finding any trace of the enemy, he cautiously turned his head and looked at Ingelund a few meters away. A cold glint flashed in Ingelund's eyes. He turned his head to look at the back and said in a deep voice, "Some of you, use your guns to block those civilians. Let them be our meat shields. If the enemy hiding in the dark dares to open fire, let them kill those civilians first." Immediately, 7 or 8 pirates crawled up from the thicket and quickly came to the front of the 10 civilians lying on the ground. After punching and kicking them, they grabbed them from the ground and used their guns to block their backs. "You go in the front." Among the 10 civilians, 6 of them were men since they had to help the pirates transport food and pills. Only 4 of them were good-looking women. Their complexions were pale at the moment and their eyes were filled with fear. Among them, 2 of the more timid women were trembling with fear. "I beg you, don't kill us." A tall and burly man cried like a woman. His legs were trembling, his lips were trembling, and there were even traces of water in his pants. "Bastard, you pissed yourself?" The pirate behind him smelled of urine and smashed the burly man's head with the butt of his gun, causing his head to bleed and directly fall to the ground. Then, he grabbed the man again and pointed his gun at him, making him open the way in the front. Puff! A pebble suddenly shot out from a distant thicket and struck the pirate's temple with unerring accuracy, leaving a bloody hole in the pirate's head and killing him. Immediately, the leaves in the thicket swayed and a figure flashed away. Ingelund, who was walking among the pirates, found that one of his men was killed. He was not alarmed but happy instead and shouted, "Everyone, stay alert. Beware of the enemy's sneak attack again. Also, if someone dares to sneak attack us again and kill one of our brothers, we'll kill a civilian." Bang! Along with the sound of a gunshot, the man who was hit by the butt of his gun was shot in the head by Ingelund, directly killing him. Despair rose inside the hearts of the other 9 civilians when they heard Ingelund's words. They knew that they were dead meat. Because this was not the outside society ruled by law. This was a battlefield, a hell on earth where one could die at any time. Tan Xiu, who was hiding behind a tree, twitched his eyelids and the killing intent in his heart became stronger. He had recognized Ingelund's identity. He was the one who shot and killed Duffsky, the leader of the Bloodfish Pirates. He was the second leader of the Bloodfish Pirates. Ingelund. This guy is a ruthless and merciless character. He must be killed first. Without a leader, these pirates could not withstand a single blow. However, the troublesome ones are the remaining 9 ordinary people. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment and faintly felt that it was a bit tricky. This chapter is today's normal update. There are 2 more chapters today. Chapter 298. Late at night under the hazy moonlight, Tan Shio quietly left like a ghost and quickly arrived at the dark and hidden grove. He then took out the satellite phone given to him by Wolfhead. The pirates are threatening the hostages. How can we eliminate all the pirates while ensuring the safety of the hostages? Asked Tan Shio in a low voice. It's very difficult. We have to wait. Tan Shio was somewhat puzzled. They are holding hostages on the island. It's impossible to kill them and ensure the safety of the hostages, said Wolfhead. We can only wait for them to board the ship and sail to the sea. Then we can sneak onto their ship and carry out the assassination. That's a good idea, said Tan Shio. But if they board the ship, it'll be very difficult for us to sneak onto the ship and carry out the assassination without being discovered. Also, the Bloodfish Pirates' second-in-command must be eradicated as soon as possible. Otherwise, they will lose their backbone and our assassination will be much more difficult. Wolfhead was silent for several seconds and then slowly said, I'm going to assassinate Ingelund. No need, said Tan Shio. It's easy for me to kill Ingelund, but I'm afraid that the hostages will also be killed if I rashly kill him. I've observed that there are a total of 61 remaining pirates, said Wolfhead. If we gather all of them and set up an ambush in a favorable terrain, we should be able to kill more than half of the pirates when we suddenly shoot them at close range. Then, we'll have 4 people observe those pirates and snipe them in advance if they shoot at the hostages. However, I can't guarantee that all the hostages will survive. Tan Shio silently pondered over Wolfhead's suggestion. If he were to let the pirates go, the remaining 9 hostages would probably be killed. But if he were to carry out the assassination and rescue operation on Nine Dragons Island, the hostages would also be killed. After weighing the pros and cons, Tan Shio made up his mind and said in a deep voice, let's do it this way. We'll take the risk to kill those pirates, and there's also the possibility of dying. We'll do our best even if the hostages are in danger. He hung up the phone. Tan Shio glanced at the direction the pirates were heading in and quickly circled around them from the side. 4 to 5 minutes later, he arrived at the place where Wolfhead and the others were hiding. Have you notified a Wen and a Wu? Tan Shio took a pair of binoculars from one of his men and asked in a low voice. Wolfhead said, I've already notified them. They should be here soon. Tan Shio nodded and used his binoculars to observe. He found that the pirates were heading in their direction with the remaining 9 hostages. At this time, they were already in a state of panic, and their faces were full of fear. The muzzle of the gun kept moving around. Boss, according to their speed, they'll arrive here in about 4 minutes. Do you think this is a good place for an ambush? Wolfhead asked in a low voice. Tan Shio looked around and nodded. That's right. Even though we're at the bottom, we've completely avoided that small path. Unless they climb up the rocks on either side, they won't find us. Also, we can't open fire before they arrive. The hostages are at the front, so we can't accidentally hurt them. So, we have to wait for them to pass and fire from behind. Boss, I don't think it's appropriate. Some of us can stay here and the rest can go to the back. 4 of us will be free to shoot. Our main purpose is to monitor the pirates who are close to the hostages. If we find their muzzles pointing at the hostages, shoot them immediately. Okay. Tan Shio thought for a moment and directly agreed. He didn't understand military affairs and didn't know how to make combat plans. Wolfhead, on the other hand, used to be the top Special Forces soldier in the country. He had performed countless missions and personally made many combat plans. His opinion was completely acceptable. Later, the Mo brothers also quickly arrived. After listening to Wolfhead's idea, they nodded in agreement. Tan Shio said, A Wen A Wu, you 2 go with Wolfhead and Wang Ming. Otherwise, shoot freely. The main purpose is to shoot those pirates who want to shoot and kill the hostages. I'll kill Ingelund first, and the rest will shoot the pirates as fast as possible. We must be fast, ruthless, and accurate. If some pirates escape, don't rush to chase them. We'll deal with most of them first. No problem. Everyone nodded. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, the pirates escorting the hostages were only 100 meters away from the ambushing A Wen A Wu and the others. Behind them, Tan Xiu and his 5 men quietly followed. They were only 40 to 50 meters away from the pirates in front. Pay attention to concealment and get as close as possible, Tang Xiu said in a low voice. A minute later, as Tan Xiu lightly climbed up a big tree, he looked at the pirates 20 to 30 meters away through the gaps of the branches and leaves. His eyes finally locked on Ingelund. The dark muzzle was aimed at Ingelund. Bang, a gunshot sounded. A bloody hole appeared in the back of Ingelund's head. His eyes stared wide as he turned around with difficulty. Just as he looked at Tan Xiu's direction, his vision spun as he lost consciousness and fell to the ground dead. Bang, 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 2 gunshots rang out and the flames swallowed. Bullets poured down like raindrops and hit the pirates. Submachine guns also shot from both sides of the pirates. A pirate was scared out of his wits and screamed. He rolled to avoid the bullets and threw himself into the bushes on the side. Unfortunately, his luck was bad and he was hit in the face by a bullet. Eventually, he lay motionless in the grass. More than 60 pirates, except for those who were shot dead, fled in all directions. They did not have the reaction speed of a regular army, nor did they have the fearless momentum. They were pirates, thugs who could almost sell their souls for money and profit. When they were strong, they could bully and kill others with that ferociousness. But in the face of enemies who were more powerful and more ruthless than them, they could only flee in panic. Half a minute of shooting. In addition to the corpses on the ground, only 7 or 8 pirates were lucky enough to flee into the bushes on the side of the path and fled at an extremely fast speed. The others all died tragically. Of the 9 hostages, 4 were shot dead by the pirates while the other 2 were injured. Tan Xiu strode to the middle of the corpses and enveloped the area with his divine sense. Bang, bing, as his finger pulled the trigger, 4 or 5 pirates who were not directly killed but were seriously injured and pretending to be dead were directly shot dead by him. After withdrawing his divine sense, Tan Xiu looked at the frightened hostages who were paralyzed on the ground and asked in a deep voice, "Tell me, who are you people?" A Caucasian man with a leg injury, who still had some courage, slumped on the ground and said, "We're the residents of South Bird Island. They caught us a few days ago to do hard labor here. Who are you people?" "I'm the owner of this island," said Tan Xiu. The Caucasian man shook his head and said, "You're lying. The owner of this place is James Bond. I helped him build this place. He's a kind and rich man. Don't you know that he has sold this island?" Tan Xiu said lightly, "I'm the one who bought this island. Remember, my Chinese name is Tan Xiu. I'm the owner of this place from now on." The Caucasian man gulped and said with a bit of awe, "I'll remember your name, sir." Tan Xiu nodded and then said to Long Tu and the others, "Leave 2 people here to bandage their wounds. The rest will go after the pirates. Do remember to kill all the pirates as much as possible. It's fine if they run too fast and we can't find them. Shortly put, I don't want to see any pirates on 9 Dragons Island before dawn." Spus. Long Tu gestured to 2 of them, and the rest then ran toward the surrounding mountain forest. The 2 brothers, Mo Aon and Mo Al, however, had already rushed into the woods to chase the pirates. Tan Xiu then looked at the South Bird Island residents and calmly said, "You don't have to be afraid. I'm the owner of this place, not those vicious pirates. I'll guarantee your safety and your smooth departure from here. Now, I'll trouble you to return to the castle with us. I'll send someone to send you back to South Bird Island tomorrow after you've had a good rest." "Thank you. Thank you." The 5 people immediately looked ecstatic after hearing it. Inside the castle, hundreds of South Bird Island residents were tied up and locked in a spacious hall. Each and every one of them was struggling desperately with a horrified look. Out of more than 100 people, only 6 were men. The rest were all women, and most of them were young and beautiful women. These women, many of them had no clothes covering their bodies. It was obvious that they had been severely abused. "Mayor Oshima, please think of a way. We'll all die here if we can't escape." A slightly plump woman's eyes flashed with horror as she hurriedly spoke. Opposite her was the mayor of South Bird Island, Oshima Chuanxiong. Originally, South Bird Island was very small, with the highest point not exceeding 10 meters above sea level. However, due to an earthquake a few years ago, the ground level of South Bird Island was raised and its area increased by 2 or 3 times. Therefore, many foreigners built their homes here. There was only a small town in the entire South Bird Island with a total population of less than 1,000 people. Oshima Chuanxiong was recommended to be the mayor due to his high status in South Bird Island. As a matter of fact, this mayor was also under the jurisdiction of the Japanese government. After all, dozens of islands within thousands of kilometers of South Bird Island were under the jurisdiction of Japan. Oshima Chuanxiong, who was over 40 years old, struggled desperately, trying to break free from the ropes on his body. Unfortunately, his efforts were in vain. The pirate's binding technique was really amazing. He had been trying hard for more than half an hour, yet there was no sign of loosening. Brothers and sisters, today's monthly votes and recommendation votes are not very ideal. If you guys and sisters don't work hard, you may not be able to meet the requirement of adding more chapters for the sake of the 3rd chapter. Brothers and sisters, please do your best. His gaze swept across the people in the hall, and the anger in his eyes intensified. Most of the hostages were women, and more than half of them were battered and exhausted. It was obvious that they had been raped. In the corner, Yi Lianyan's eyes widened in an instant, and a look of ecstasy burst out of her eyes, because the language spoken by the big man just now was not English, nor was it Japanese, but pure Chinese. Chinese? Chinese? Her breathing became rapid, and she made up her mind. She suddenly stood up and shouted, "I'm from Huaxia. Are you also from Huaxia?" Tang Xiu stared blankly for a moment. He looked at Yi Lianyan's yin-yang face and found that her clothes were intact, with only some scratches on her face. He immediately walked toward her and said, "That's right, we're all Chinese." He didn't expect that the pirates would capture his compatriots. "What's your name?" "Yi Lianyan." "How did you get captured?" asked Tan Xiu. "I took advantage of the summer vacation after the college entrance test to travel here," said Yi Lianyan. "But I ended up being captured together with them." Tan Xiu shook his head and sighed. "Your luck isn't good, but it's not bad either. Congratulations, you're free now." After the men with submachine guns lowered their muzzles, they began to untie the ropes for those who were tied up according to Tan Xiu's instructions. After everyone stood up, Oshima Chuanxiong came to Tan Xiu with an excited face and respectfully said, "Hello, I'm Oshima Chuanxiong. Thank you for saving us. You're our savior and we'll remember you." "Are you a Japanese?" Tan Xiu frowned and lightly asked. Oshima Chuanxiong bowed. "Take a rest first," said Tan Xiu. "I'll send someone to send you back after dawn. Also, I hope you won't spread this matter out." "Honorable sir, we should try our best to publicize this matter. After all, you drove away the pirates. You're heroes who saved people. Everyone in the world should know about your heroic deeds." Tan Xiu glanced at him indifferently and lightly said, "We're not heroes, and we don't have to save you. I bought this island, and it's my turf. Those pirates occupied my turf, so driving them away was a must. Saving you was just a convenient thing. Also, once this matter is spread out, it will bring us a lot of trouble." The hundreds of rescued people looked at each other in dismay. They didn't understand what trouble Tan Xiu was talking about. But Tan Xiu saved their lives, so they didn't want to bring trouble to Tan Xiu. Therefore, they expressed that they wouldn't speak about this matter to anyone. Of course, those women were naturally satisfied with Tan Xiu's request to keep it a secret. After all, they had been violated by pirates here, and this had seriously damaged their reputation. "All right, it's not particularly safe outside since some pirates have fled," said Tan Xiu in a deep voice. "I can't guarantee that they won't sneak back here to avenge their companions. Therefore, you must stay here until we're sure that the remaining pirates have left. Only then can you go out." "All right, thank you." Tan Xiu shook his head and was about to leave. Yi Lianyan hurriedly ran over and grabbed Tan Xiu's arm. She shook her head and said, "I don't want to stay here. Can I go with you?" "Are you the only Chinese here?" Tan Xiu hesitated for a moment and asked. "Yes, only me." Yi Lianyan nodded. "Then follow me out," Tan Xiu said. But I hope the scene outside won't scare you. They left the hall. Tan Xiu then said to his men, "Gather all the corpses of the pirates. Then wait for Wolfhead and the others to come back." Affirmative. The men immediately dispersed after hearing it. Half an hour later, Wolfhead, the Mo brothers, and the others rushed back and brought back a total of 6 corpses. After throwing the corpses on the square outside the castle, Wolfhead respectfully said, "Boss, we only chased and killed the 6 pirates who fled. Some of them have already escaped. We rushed to one of them and found that the pirates had gone far away by ship." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "They are lucky since they have escaped. Gather all the corpses. After burning them, clean up the castle." Affirmative. Wolfhead respectfully replied. Tan Xiu then looked at Mo On and said, "After dawn, you take a few men and send the captured civilians back to South Bird Island. When we go back, warn them to keep what happened here a secret." Affirmative. Mo On nodded and replied. After a fierce night battle, only a few of the more than 200 pirates escaped, while the rest were all killed here. Tan Xiu was very satisfied with the result. None of his men died, and only a few of them suffered minor injuries. However, the gunfight had damaged the castle a lot, but Tan Xiu would renovate it, so he didn't take it seriously. Accompanied by Mo, he toured the entire castle. After strolling for several hours, he returned to the square outside the castle with a satisfied mood. Yi Lianyan, who had been following Tan Xiu, wanted to ask many times. But after seeing Tan Xiu's enthusiastic look, she suppressed the doubts deep inside her heart. At this moment, she finally couldn't help but ask, "Big Brother Tang, did you really buy this island?" "Yes," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Big Brother Tang, who are you exactly?" Yi Lianyan asked again. "Why did you buy such an isolated island here? As far as I know, it'll take a day and a night to sail from here to South Bird Island. Besides, it'll be very difficult to find this place without a precise sailing route." "Have you ever read Tao Yuanming's Peach Blossom Spring?" Tan Xiu asked with a smile. Yi Lianyan's eyes widened and she replied in surprise, "I have. It's from junior high school textbooks." "You mean, you want to build a Xanadu here?" "That's right. I want to build a Xanadu here," Tan Xiu said with a smile. Yi Lianyan's mouth twitched a few times. With a strange expression, she said, "You rich people really have special hobbies. But how come your men are so powerful? Pirates are vicious, and they kill without batting an eyelid. But only a few of them escaped out of more than 200 pirates, while the rest were killed by you and your men. Isn't this too powerful?" "I don't want to answer your question," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "But I can give you some words for free." "Words?" Yi Lianyan was puzzled. With a faint smile, Tan Xiu said, "Only those who know and pretend to be confused are the real smart ones. Those who don't know and always want to get to the bottom of it are like the saying, 'Curiosity killed the cat.' I'm afraid they won't have a good end." Yi Lianyan stared blankly and instantly lowered her head without speaking. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and turned to look at Wolfhead at the side, saying, "I'll give you 10 days. Explore the entire 9 Dragons Island for me. I want to make sure that there's no one else here except us. Also, I'll draw a building plan in these 10 days. I'll confirm the construction company I'll cooperate with before returning to China." "I think the construction here is good, boss," Wolfhead said. "Why do you want to rebuild it?" Today's 3rd chapter has been updated. Including the supplementary chapters, a total of 5 chapters have been updated today. _. Chapter 300. Tan Xiu didn't explain it to Wolfhead. He wanted to make 9 Dragons Island the most suitable place for cultivation in the world. Even if he explained those methods to Wolfhead, Wolfhead would not be able to understand. After landing on 9 Dragons Island, Tan Xiu was keenly aware that the density of the surrounding spiritual energy was at least 5 times higher than in other places. Even taking a deep breath would make him feel comfortable. If he built the entire 9 Dragons Spitting Pearl secret land, the density of spiritual energy on the island would be dozens or even 100 times higher than in the outside world. However, he didn't dare to go too far. If the density of spiritual energy here was 100 times higher than in the outside world, ordinary people would probably choke to death if they breathed in. Don't ask so much. You'll understand when the reconstruction is done. Tan Xiu waved at Wolfhead, signaling him to go do something else. Then he turned around and walked to the edge of the square. Looking down at the border between the woodland and the beach, his eyes finally stopped at the place that protruded for 100 meters. The red sun rose. Tan Xiu clearly saw a beam of purple qi descend from the sky the moment the red sun rose and merged with the top of the extended line. Supreme King Purple Qi? How is that possible? How can there be Supreme King Purple Qi on Earth? Tan Xiu's body shook violently, his eyes filled with shock. One must know that the Supreme Monarch Purple Qi was the most unique existence in the immortal world's Purple Sun region. There were only 9 places in the entire Purple Sun sector, and 9 of them would descend every year. Every one of them would bring great benefits to immortals. Tan Xiu had obtained 2 Supreme King Purple Qi when he was in the immortal world, but he had paid a great price for it. But he never expected that there would be Supreme King Purple Qi here. If I can absorb 1 Supreme King Purple Qi into my body, it will definitely bring me great benefits. I might even be able to break through and reach the flesh regeneration stage. Excitement. Ecstasy. It was difficult to express Tan Xiu's feelings at this moment. Although it hadn't been long since he returned from the immortal world, his cultivation was still slow. If he wanted to have stronger power, he had to find a shortcut. A few minutes later, Tan Xiu appeared where the Supreme Monarch Purple Qi had dissipated. When he got off the ship, he didn't pay much attention to this place. But at this moment he released his immortal sense and the astral power in his body surged in his meridians. He immediately felt that the spiritual qi here was very thin, but under his feet, there was an extremely strong fluctuation of spiritual qi. There's a spirit spring down there? Is this the mouth of the spiritual spring? Tan Xiu was stunned. He was so shocked by this discovery that it was hard for him to recover. Originally, he speculated that the entire Nine Dragons Island must have a spiritual vein, but he didn't expect that there was not only a spiritual vein here, but also an earth vein spiritual spring. Spirit Spring. The earth vein's spiritual energy impacted the Star City's spirit spring, which contained a huge amount of earth vein's spiritual energy. If a cultivator were to sit on it and cultivate, not only would he be able to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, but he would also be able to extract the spiritual energy from the spiritual spring. The effect of cultivation would definitely be twice the result with half the effort. Are there any spiritual springs in other places? Tan Xiu then recalled the other 8 harbor trails that extended into the sea. He immediately strode away from this place and rushed toward the nearest harbor trail that extended into the sea. 10 minutes later, when he stood in another place, he released his immortal sense and the astral power in his body surged crazily. A look of ecstasy suddenly appeared on his face. He could clearly feel the existence of the spiritual spring. Could it be that there are spiritual springs at the end of the 9 extending harbor trails? In order to verify this big idea, Tan Xiu circled around the entire 9 Dragons Island and began to survey. Every time he verified one, the excitement on his face became more intense. When he had verified all 9 harbor paths, the smile on his face was incomparably radiant. There was a spiritual spring at the end of each of the 9 harbor trails. 9 spiritual springs. Tan Xiu was already sure that with the existence of these spiritual springs, he could easily cultivate a large number of experts in the future. Even after the reconstruction of the 9 Dragons Spitting Pearl Secret Realm, it would not be a problem to cultivate a large number of experts who could break through to the immortal realm. I must hurry up with the reconstruction of this place. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment and suddenly decided not to hire a foreign construction company. Immediately, he took out his satellite phone and dialed Long Zhengyu's cell number. Hello, Long Zhengyu speaking. Who's this? Long Zhengyu's deep and low voice came from the phone. It's me, Tan Xiu said. Tan Xiu. Star City, Long Group's manager's office. Long Zhengyu looked dazed for a moment before a smile appeared on his face and said, Tan Xiu, I've been calling you for the past few days, but I couldn't get through. Where are you now? Is there something you need from me? Asked Tan Xiu. It's no big deal. I just wanted to ask if you need any more medicinal herbs, said Long Zhenyu with a smile. It's the list you gave Chu Yi and the others. My dad met his old comrade a few days ago. He's running a medicinal herb business in Haiqing province. At that time, I followed my dad and mentioned it to his old comrade. I didn't expect that he would have a lot of good goods there. Yes, I want as many as you have, said Tan Xiu immediately. That's good then, Long Zhenyu said with a smile. I'll contact him later. I guarantee that I'll get a batch of good quality medicinal herbs for you. That's right, why did you call me? There's something. It's very important, Tan Xiu said with a deep voice. Although I really want to talk to you face to face, I'm abroad now, so I can only talk to you over the phone. Say it, said Long Zhenyu with a serious expression. I bought an island abroad and want to develop it, said Tan Xiu. But I need a reliable construction company. Long Zhenyu looked awkward as he forced a smile and said, Brother Tang, this matter is not easy to handle. We don't have a construction company abroad, and we don't know much about the situation abroad. Can we register a company here? Tan Xiu said. Bring all the construction teams from China. I'm willing to spend more money. Long Zhenyu forced a smile and said, It's not a matter of spending more money. It's very troublesome to register a construction company overseas for a small project. You're wrong, Long Zhenyu, said Tan Xiu in a deep voice. Helping me transform the island is definitely not a small project. I'm going to invest at least 20 billion yuan. How much? Long Zhenyu jumped up from the table and shouted. 20 billion at least, said Tan Xiu. Long Zhenyu's breathing turned rapid. He had never heard of any major project worth more than 20 billion yuan in China. If his Long family could take such a big project, they would be able to make a lot of money for at least 2 or 3 years without accepting any other projects. I'll take it. Long Zhenyu's eyes turned a bit red as he shouted. No problem, said Tan Xiu. Since you're willing to take it, you'd better come to me immediately tomorrow. I'll send someone to Saipan to pick you up. Long Zhenyu quickly said, I still have some concerns. If I can solve this concern, I can organize a construction team and even start to arrange the construction equipment. I need to prepare to go to the island you bought. What concerns? Asked Tan Xiu. The situation in Saipan, said Long Zhenyu. We're not familiar with the situation there, and the government there is a lot of trouble. You have a wide network, so do you have any reliable people to help you there? Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he slowly said, There should be. Long Zhenyu looked happy and quickly asked, Who is it? A friend of mine, said Tan Xiu. He seems to have some influence in Saipan. I can pay him a visit if there's any problem you can't solve. No problem, said Long Zhenyu in a deep voice. All right, I'll go to Saipan tomorrow. No, I'll go there today. Let's discuss a place. After I get there, I'll meet up with your men. Lao Bei Resort, said Tan Xiu in a deep voice. After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiu pondered for a moment. He would definitely go to Saipan himself. He would have a good talk with Tom Regis. If he also wanted to meddle in this matter, then he would give him some benefits. Furthermore, after the reconstruction of Nine Dragons Island was completed, this place would become his base, and he would pass through Saipan more often. It was very necessary for him to have a good relationship with him. Big Brother Tang. On the coastline 100 meters away, Yi Lianyan had taken off the thing on her face, and her yin-yang face had turned into a beautiful one. Tan Xiu put away the satellite phone and came to Yi Lianyan's front. He was surprised and said, Your face, I used some tricks to make myself ugly, said Yi Lianyan with a smile. That way, those pirates will despise me. Tan Xiu suddenly understood and secretly praised the girl's intelligence. Is there something you need from me? Didn't I ask them to send someone to send you all away? They sent the others away, but I don't want to go, said Yi Lianyan quickly. I think this place is good, and it's safe to follow you. So I want to stay here for a while. We're a bunch of men, it's not suitable for you to follow us, said Tan Xiu with a forced smile. It's all right, Yi Lianyan said. It's exactly because you're a bunch of men that I'm staying. Do you need to eat? I can cook for you. My cooking skills are pretty good. As for your clothes, I can also wash them for you. I can also help you clean the house. In short, I'm still very useful for staying here. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "Forget it. Since you want to stay, then stay. I'm going to leave Nine Dragons Island today and go to Saipan. I'm afraid it'll take me a few days to come back." "What are you going to do in Saipan?" asked Yi Lianyan, confused. "I'm going to do something," answered Tan Xiu. Yi Lianyan hesitated for a moment and asked, "Can I go with you?" Tan Xiu shook his head. "You can't come back with me if you want to go to Saipan with me. Otherwise, you can just stay here obediently. I'll bring my friend here and you can go with him when he leaves." Yi Lianyan hesitated for a moment and said, "Then I'll stay here. I just found out that the environment on this island is really great, and I can even live in such a luxurious palace. To tell you the truth, I've never seen such a luxurious palace in my life. Big Brother Tang, you're really rich." Today's first update, please pay attention to Quiet Night's WeChat account, brothers and sisters. There will be a lot of gossips about Quiet Night and a lot of great gods there, as well as many photos of Quiet Night. Also, Quiet Night will send out big red envelopes from time to time. Please pay attention and reply to everyone's messages at any time _. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.